Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the April 7th, 2020 West Grey Council meeting. We are using audio only to conduct this electronic meeting. Video is not possible at this time due to limited bandwidth in some areas of West Grey. Bandwidth is challenging our ability to do a complete video broadcast, so for now, we'll be sharing today's agenda and presentations on screen along with our audio. Item 1, I'm calling this meeting to order. All members of council are present as identified through their login. We have a quorum. The agenda has been circulated. As you know, the meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the West Grey website. The website being www.westgrey.com. I want to let everyone know that under new business, there will be an update on COVID-19. Our fire chief Schwartz will be providing that update for us. Depending on his availability, we may be moving that particular new business item up, but I'll be mentioning that to council at the time. If not, our regular flow of the agenda will take place. The technology of this meeting is being managed by staff. Please refrain from clicking buttons throughout the meeting unless prompted. If you do get disconnected at any time, you can phone 1-647-558-0588. I'll repeat that number, 1-647-558-0588, and then enter the meeting ID 467-695-430. Again, the meeting ID 467-695-430 to join through the telephone. Before we continue, I'd ask Director of Finance and Treasurer, Carrie Mighton, to give an overview of some of the other key points for today's meeting. Director Mighton?
Sorry, I'll start again. Members of council have been briefed on the use of various features in Zoom. We will be raising hands to speak using the green checkmark button to vote in favor of a motion or using the red X button to vote against. Each member of council will be called on to also verbally confirm their vote for the benefit of any guest who called in rather than joined us online. Councillors will also be using the green checkmark button to make a declaration if needed. Regarding audience participation, for this meeting, members of the public were invited to submit comments or questions in advance. We did not receive any submissions for the comment period. However, there is an opportunity later in the agenda for public participation, and I will outline that process once we get there. If you do have any technical issues, please send a chat message to Cody Hewlett during the meeting for assistance.
Thank you, Director Mighton. We are now on item 2, moment of reflection. Members of council and those listening in, please take a quiet moment of reflection. Thank you. We are now on item 3, declarations of pecuniary interest, direct or indirect. I'm asking members of council, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? If so, indicate by raising your hand. I am not seeing any on the board, but I am checking. Director Mighton, do you see any members of council wishing to declare? Thank you very much. Seeing none, we are now moving on to item 4, closed session. There is no closed session for this particular agenda. Item 5, matters arising from closed session, NA. Item 6, comment period. Please note that any comment relating to our public meeting regarding the budget presentation will be addressed during item 7, which is actually the next item. Director Mighton, I just want confirmation one more time. Have we received any emails, phone calls, correspondence submitted in our Dropbox pertaining to comment period on this agenda?
No, nothing in any of those methods.
Thank you. We are now on item 7, the public meeting, the budget presentation. Director Mighton, our Director of Finance and Treasurer, as you know, will be providing an overview of the proposed 2020 budget. In terms of the format for this item, there will be a budget presentation made, then there will be questions and comments from the public that will be managed through staff, and then there will be questions and comments from members of council. Following this, I'll look for a motion. If carried, it will be incorporated into the bylaw that is on this agenda. I want to first say that this current recommended budget was done pre-COVID-19, that is before the pandemic, and its economic impact on West Grey. There will be discussion from this council following the public input with regard to our budget. So again, we'll have the presentation, question comments from the public, question comments from members of council, a motion, and then we looked at the appropriate time under the section of budget, passing the budget bylaw, as we fondly call it. Okay, so we're moving on to the budget presentation. I also want to, just as a sidebar, just before I turn this over to Director Mighton, for members of council, if you have questions or comments, please raise your hand. During voting, as you know, it's the check mark for yes and the X mark for no during that vote time. But again, raise your questions if you have, raise your hand rather if you have questions. Director Mighton, are you ready for the presentation?
And I do, could go back up one page, please. Just as a correction, the meeting ID for this meeting, if you do have problems and need to log in, is 415-230-152. Just wanted to make that clear, of the correct meeting ID. Okay, you can go to we'll start our budget presentation. So as the mayor mentioned, this budget was recommended by council at its March 6th committee of the whole meeting. This is what we will be presenting because this is what was previously recommended. The 2020 West Grey tax levy increase as recommended at the time was 6.64% or $647,000. This would be an estimated local levy increase of approximately $33.32 per 100,000 of assessment for a residential home that increased an average of 3.2% in reassessment. Our total operating expenditures are just over 13.9 million, and capital expenditures are at 9.8 million for a total of $23.8 million. On our revenues, the tax levy is about 44% or just over $10.5 million. Borrowing makes up the next largest part at 5.7 million. Part of that would be for estimated borrowing for the construction of a new police station. You can see the other components. User fees includes water and sewer revenues, which do not hit the tax levy, and also any other rentals and fees charged by the municipality. And that gets us down to the 23.8 million in revenues. On the expenditure side, the corporate expenditures are the largest at 38% or just over 9.1 million. Again, that does incorporate the estimated construction for a new police station. So that is a significant project that is not a usual type of budget item. And then you can see public works, police, fire, recreation. Again, water and sewer is included in there, but it is 100% user fee funded, waste management and library. And that gets us to our total of $23.8 million. So I'm
Sure. Sure. Thank you, Director Mighton. I really appreciate that presentation. For now, I would like to know if there are any members of our audience that wish to ask questions. Director Mighton, please go ahead with those 2 questions as indicated.
Okay, so the first submitted question that we had is from Marion Ratcliffe. She writes, I have read through several sets of meeting minutes and am left unclear on what money is allocated to bridge repair replacement for 2020. Could council please clarify final decisions? Thank you.
Question, would you be able to handle that financial impact question on bridges, please?
Okay, so the current budget that was recommended included $717,000 of work to be done and also a $275,000 transfer to a bridge reserve for a total of $992,000. The tax levy portion of those expenditures was funding just over $500,000 of that 992.
Thank you for that complete response. The second inquiry, please.
The next question that was submitted comes from Margaret Crowder. She writes, I am unlikely to be able to participate in your Tuesday council meeting as I have a conflicting Zoom meeting. However, I do want to express my great disappointment when I received the April 7th agenda to find you, the West Grey Council, are moving ahead with the budget recommended at the March 6th Committee of the Whole meeting. At that time, the increase was completely irresponsible. Even noting the increases of other municipalities, you did not give consideration to your own West Grey taxpayers. There were some that voted down a motion for a 5.67% increase, only to approve a 6.64% increase. Any budget year, an increase should be somewhat in line with the increase of the cost of living. The suggested increase is completely out of order. Since that date, there have been members of West Grey Council. Where have West Grey Council members been? Do you have your heads in the sand? Do you not know the world has changed in the last month? You can still be responsible and revisit the budget. This is not the time to pass a budget with an increase of 6.64%.
Anything further on that comment? Well, we appreciate it, and certainly Ms. Crowder would be able to follow along on the recording afterwards. Certainly West Grey Council was looking at a budget that would be responsible, as always, to our citizens. We pay attention to our infrastructure needs, programs, and services for our citizens. That's extremely important to this council on behalf of our citizens. But things have changed, and that was one of the things that I raised right at the beginning when I opened this meeting. Things have changed in the last month. We are now in a different world, if you will. And we need to look at our budget accordingly. The time frame by which we're able to address this budget now, I think, is perfect. And the council will be looking at this budget now and making a very responsible recommendation. Hopefully today, in terms of getting our budget passed. We're in second quarter, and we need to move on, make decisions. So I do appreciate the comments. I quite like public meeting environments. I think they're really important, along with comment and question period. All right, I've said enough at this point. Director Mighton, could you please just open it up for anybody else that has questions?
Okay, so I will reiterate how public can participate. Members of the public who wish to participate during this question period may participate in one of 3 ways. If you have logged into the meeting with your computer, you can submit a question using the chat function located at the bottom of your screen. Type your name and your question into the chat and sending the message to Carrie. Questions will be placed in the sequence in which they are received and will be read out by myself. Alternatively, if you have also logged into the meeting with your computer and would like to speak to council, then please click the Raise Your Hand button located in the bottom right-hand corner. When it is your turn, we will indicate that you have been unmuted and you may state your name and ask your question. Finally, if you have joined the meeting on a telephone line and would like to speak to council, press *9 to raise your hand. When it is your turn, we will indicate that you have been unmuted and you may state your name and ask your question.
Thank you, Director Mighton. I appreciate that. I see that there is a question, a hand raised. I wonder if you could please unmute that individual so that we could hear the question. Thank you. Please go ahead. If your the last 2 digits of your phone number are 646. And could you please state your name?
Paul Wetlaufer. Good morning. I appreciate you taking my my question. I'm having some concerns over the agricultural tax rate, and I'm just curious as into whether West Grey has is still in support of the agricultural tax rate reduction.
Hey, Paul, or hello, Paul. It's really great hearing your voice. Thanks for participating in this. I can tell you that this is a question that will be addressed, as you know, at the county level, because it is at the county level that the tax rate and tax ratios are determined. So that report has not come before Grey County Council at this time. I know I'm speaking at county level. Mike Ryan and it was Mike Ryan of the Grey Federation of Agriculture was present, as well as yourself, making that presentation to this West Grey Council. So that's the summary I could give you at this point.
But is West Grey still in support of, or? I was under the impression that West Grey was in support of the agricultural tax rate reduction. Are you still in support of?
That has not changed. I have no indication from our council, but everything was status quo with respect to the presentation, and we have not discussed it further on any agenda, Paul.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, you're quite welcome. All right, Director Mighton, are there any other questions? I'm not seeing any, but could you please confirm? I would just give an opportunity for anyone else listening. If you would like to ask a question or make a comment, now is the time. So let's just give a moment, please. Director Mighton.
I can just quickly to summarize, you can participate using the chat function. If you send it directly to Carrie in the chat function at the bottom of the screen, or if you raise your hand, again, the button should be located possibly at the bottom of your screen, or if you are on the telephone, *9 would raise your hand, just as a reminder of how anyone can participate.
Paul Wetlaufer again.
Paul, please go ahead.
I just with the budget,
Yes.
I just want to be assured that you are going to review your budget again because of the existing coronavirus situation. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is. Paul, the last time we met as committee of the whole and recommended that budget was March 12th, March 6th, rather. I've just been corrected by the Director of Finance and Treasurer. That was March 6th. That was, like I said in my opening comments, that was pre-COVID-19, pre-pandemic, impact on the citizens. Today is the day that our council is looking at that budget and that considerations will be made for sure. Okay.
Okay, and I appreciate that. And I just want to confirm that I really do think that in our present situation that drastic measures should be taken to reduce the 6.4 because of your move last year of diving into the reserves definitely has put you at somewhat of a disadvantage, and I really think that you need to be very concerned about how you go forward. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Paul. I really appreciate. I like that you've participated in our discussion and certainly any conversations that we have. Yeah, reserves are. There's obviously two schools of thought on reserves. They're there when the community needs them for the budget, and and I think that's really important to keep in mind. And there's also time when you need to save those reserves. Now, I'm seeing that I want to move on with the comments and questions. I see that there's two members of council. I want to let you know that the questions are not at this point. I just want to conclude I would like to conclude the public portion of it, and then we'll have members of council speak. But I do just want to clear the hands on this. So starting with Councillor Shea, what is your comment, please? Okay. So hang on, I'm just stopping for a moment. We do have another member of our community that would like to talk. I just want to remind our council members that the council discussion point will happen after the public session. So if you could please lower your hands for the discussion to come later on. Thank you very much. The next person from the public, Director Mighton, could you please introduce and have that question or comment stated?
So in the chat from Jenny Parsons, her comment is, Steve and I are happy to be with you today. You're all doing great so far.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. I just had to wait till my mic was unmuted. Thank you, Jenny and Steve, for the comment, and we really appreciate that you're participating on this council meeting. All right, for the third time, are there any new people that would wish to, and by new I mean new participants in today's meeting, that wish to make a comment or ask a question with regard to our draft budget at this point? Director Mighton, are you seeing any on screen?
No, I'm not seeing anything. And again, the raise your hand function would be in the bottom on the participants panel if it was a similar program to what we're looking at.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Members of our community, citizens, is there anybody else that wishes to make a comment or question at this time? I'm calling it for the third time, and I will be closing it off at this point for citizen participation, but we very much appreciate it. On the third time, Director Mighton, are you seeing anyone? Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for that public dialogue. Very, very instrumental in certainly comments that we need as council to hear what our citizens are wanting, and certainly that we're able to represent them We are going to have questions and comments now from members of council. I will start, and in starting, I will transfer the chair to Deputy Mayor Tom Hutchinson. I'll transfer it in a moment, and then when I do so, I will have Deputy Mayor Hutchinson acknowledge that he has the chair. I just want to say a few things. And then I also have a question of Director Mighton. And then once that is complete, I will resume the chair. This is procedurally correct, and I would like Clerk Turner just to confirm that verbally, please.
I confirm the procedure enunciated by the mayor is correct.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, I am transferring the chair to you. Could you please confirm that you now have the chair?
Morning. I accept the chair.
Could you please state your name?
It's Deputy Mayor Tom Hutchinson.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So Deputy Mayor Hutchinson now has the chair while I make my statement. So as you are aware, the setting of the budget is one of the most important tasks of this council. The budget sets out the delivery of operations, services, and programs, as well as capital projects to be completed within the year. And keep in mind, we're in second quarter. Our current proposed budget sets out some important strategic projects, and setting the tax rate is also important to ensure the completion of these projects. We all know there's only one taxpayer. Our world here in West Grey has significantly changed in the past weeks with the coronavirus pandemic. COVID-19 has impacted on our West Grey community negatively with respect to people becoming unemployed, losing work hours, and reduced levels of income. Our business community has also the ongoing experience of people not spending, and in some cases have suspended their business at this point during the pandemic. Our budget was recommended by West Grey Committee of the Whole pre-pandemic. I've asked the Director of Finance and Treasurer to look at a budget that is lights on and includes projects. I'm looking at, from my position, from my opinion, the budget needs to be much lower than was recommended, that 6.64, but that was certainly at a time where the focus was on strategic improvements to our infrastructure and programs and services. We're in a different time. I'm asking Director Mighton to explain how this budget could be considered lights on or through reserves, reducing reserves or other reduction strategies. I will ask her to do that in one moment. But at this point, I'm looking at a budget that maybe is in the range of 3.2% to 3.5%. And I think it's very important that we do this. Director Mighton, could you please carry us through some examples of how this could be achieved? Those are my questions. The clerk is saying that I can assume the chair back before you respond. So that's the only technical difference. So while I still have the microphone, Deputy Mayor Tom Hutchinson, I am assuming the chair back. Can you just confirm, transfer the chair, please?
Yes, I, Deputy Mayor Tom Hutchinson, transfer the chair back to Mayor Robinson.
Thank you. So I have the chair. Director Mighton, could you go through some strategic examples by which we could lower our budget? That is my question. Following that, obviously, opening up to questions and comments from the balance of council. Please go ahead.
One of the items may be the bridge reserve. We have $275,000 that we were going to transfer to a bridge reserve. It will delay building up our bridge program, that's for sure. But it is that is an item that is not construction related this year, so it may be something that we want to defer in the budget. The other couple of items, council had added in a couple of committee items, the sustainability and dark sky totaling 13,600. Maybe we consider what can be achieved this year in light of our current operating environment and focus on more of an education program which can be achieved through our social media at no cost. And that maybe is the focus for this year and planning for future years. But some of the trade shows and different items, maybe some are already canceled and others may not proceed, but maybe we switch gears and look at an education program instead. The other item, when the library board was here, we did not ask them to reduce their budget, similar to when the police board was here. So if we were to ask for a reduction of 11,400 from their budget, that would take them from 12.2% to 8.8%, and instead of a $40,000 increase, it would be a $29,000 increase in their budget. And those measures, as an example, would get us down to 3.5% tax levy increase.
Thank you, Director Mighton, and I really appreciate the detail in terms of how we can achieve a much lower budget that would be responsible for our citizens, and you need to keep that in mind. All right, members of council, do you have any comments or questions? And if you do, please raise your hand. I'm going to start with Councillor Hutchinson. Your mic will be unmuted. And please, Councillor Hutchinson, go ahead.
Good morning. Councillor Hutchinson speaking here. My understanding is that we weren't actually going to pass this budget today. This is more for information. Is that correct?
No, that actually is not correct, Councillor. On this particular budget, we've hosted the public meeting. And we are deliberating on this budget, and we can determine through a motion if there is an ability to reduce the budget or whatever council wishes to do with a motion. And if carried, that would be brought over into the bylaw that is on the agenda. So in effect, we can get this budget passed today, if that is the will of council, and we can move on with other matters before us. So that is the process.
Okay. So my thoughts are that, I think right from the get-go, I thought that our budget was coming in too high, but I also understand, and people have to understand, that the difficulty we have with infrastructure, especially particularly our bridges, and we need to put some money into them. But since we came up with this figure, the world has changed, as you know. And so I'm thinking that before we do pass this budget, I would really like to have maybe one more discussion with all of staff, because things are definitely changing. The amount of money, the amount of construction that's going to be allowed, the amount of revenue that's going to be coming in. There's going to be a lot of changes, given that we don't know when this thing's going to end and where we're at. So I would like to have another go at trying to figure out where we are sort of with this budget and where we need to go. So that would be my suggestion, and I would make a motion on that if we need to defer it for another meeting. But in the meantime, it is a difficult time, and if it wasn't for the pandemic, I was going to suggest that we go ahead with it, because it amounts to maybe $100 to $150 per household per year, which is not a lot, given that we are behind the eight ball, or the situation in terms of bridges. So that's my thoughts for now. I think we'd be ahead of ourselves if we actually pass this budget at this point without having another discussion of where we're going forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councillor Hutchinson. So in regard to that, there could be an ability to have another council meeting this coming Monday, which would be Monday, April 13th. And that would be a special council meeting by which we could have the discussion on the budget. So that is a possibility. I'm not taking motions at this point, but keep that in mind, Councillor. I want to go through the other questions or comments from our balance of members of council, and we can just have a thorough discussion. Very much appreciate all of your comments, Councillor Hutchinson. Next in the queue is Councillor Townsend. We will get your mic unmuted. Councillor Townsend, state your name and please go ahead.
Yes, this is Councillor Townsend, and I'd like to start by saying that I'm in support of what Councillor Hutchinson said in spades. The reason I say that is it's not just a matter of cost, though. We are likely to experience some issues with revenue. We've based part of our budget on revenue from new households being built, sold, and coming online. That is likely to be delayed. We also have a pending revenue from the provincial and federal government under various funding programs. And given what they've given up, I suspect that will be a challenge as well. Perhaps not on the amount, but perhaps on the timing. And all of this is based on timing. The third point is we really don't know when we'll actually get back online to start projects. We can still do some infrastructure that's been allowed under the essential businesses and that kind of stuff. So I'm not as concerned about that. Impact has also indicated that they are not going to put the new assessed value in 2020, but it will happen in 2021. So I'm not sure what happens to our rates and revenue from that perspective. And we also have another bylaw to consider later on in the agenda, which is to waive penalty interest, which, if I recall correctly, is about a $50,000 impact. The last point I'd like to make is that the impact on us from COVID-19 has generated us to dedicate and call an emergency situation and declare an emergency. That in itself should open up an opportunity to approach the province on making sure that we're made whole to some degree and in some situations. What I don't understand yet is exactly what that means and what is available to us to help us get back on track. So having said all that, I would be very much in support of the motion, even to the point of seconding it. I would also be in favor of the meeting for the 13th so that we can do this sooner than later. The only question would be, are we able to get any input or responses from the other parties that I mentioned earlier to determine what, if any, impact there will be from the perspective of revenue?
Thank you very much, Councillor Townsend. Very much appreciate those comments. I have not received any correspondence from the province with regard to a funding package with regard to municipalities. Director Mighton, have you received anything at this point? No. Okay, thank you. Yeah, we're keeping up to date with that. Certainly, the idea of having another meeting is very positive, where we can address everything. If that later on determines to be the will of this council to have a further meeting, that is certainly what should take place. All right, now, thank you, Councillor Townsend. Councillor Hamilton. One moment, your mic has been unmuted. Good morning, and please go ahead.
Good morning, Mayor Robin, members of council and staff and the public. Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone from our public who participated today in our public meeting. It takes a lot of energy and courage to participate at the best of times, yet alone during a pandemic. So thank you for your feedback. It's well noted, and I hear you. So as was mentioned, this budget was created before COVID. before we declared an emergency, before social distancing, before travel restriction, before the closures of schools and businesses and municipal buildings and parks, before fire bans, before 1 million Canadians applied for EI, before 300,000 Canadians applied for the Canada Emergency Response Fund in one day, and before the first case of COVID-19 in Grey County. This budget is from before. Many people and businesses are feeling anxious, overwhelmed, and feeling uncertain about our loved ones' health, education, and finances. It's not business as usual, and we must be responsive to our new reality. And so I am resonating with Councillor Hutchinson and with Councillor Townsend and fully support that we need time to come together and have a wholesome or fulsome conversation with staff about the impact of COVID. And we have to create a budget that reflects the current times and the foreseeable future, as our province predicts the pandemic to last anywhere from 18 months to 2 years. So I also agree the draft budget should be deferred and reconsidered so that we may find savings to lessen the financial impact on the citizens of West Grey while retaining essential services. We also recognize that revenues will be down, and so we need to cut our expenses as well. We have to look for every available cost-cutting measure with a focus on essential services and sticking to the bare necessities. So I would be supportive of deferring any decisions on this budget bylaw, and would be looking for staff to report back on lowering the budget as much as possible while retaining essential services. And I also, just to add, perhaps that meeting on Monday, should council vote to have a meeting on Monday, it's certainly about the budget of COVID, how COVID's impacting our budget, but also perhaps there's a whole meeting dedicated to COVID. I'd like to know how COVID is impacting existing programs, services, and staffing levels, the unexpected costs due to COVID. There's a lot to be discussed, and certainly things are moving and unfolding quickly. But I think that it'd be very prudent to have that fulsome discussion. So I'm very much lining with Councillor Hutchinson and Councillor Townsend. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Very, very much appreciate those comments. Yeah, it goes without saying that we would be requiring information in terms of the impact of COVID on our municipality, folding into that budget discussion as much as we have the information currently. There's still a lot of unknowns in terms of the total hours of work for staffing or equipment utilized. So just the overall cost, we could probably project. Director Mighton, how much information could you be prepared to provide? I know you're keeping tabs on everything, and I absolutely agree that would certainly be part of the budget discussion for if council does approve having a meeting on Monday. We would need to have some idea of that dollar figure. Director Mighton? Now, like in terms of the type of information that you would provide, certainly if you're not prepared for the dollar figure at this point.
Yep, we can see what we can bring together based on estimates. It's a situation that's changing and we don't have an end point at this point, so it's very difficult to know what the impact will be. You know, we thought it would be 2 weeks, 4 weeks, now we're May, like what, we don't know. It's constantly changing, so it's difficult to put a static number on it, but we can try to put together some information for Monday if that's the wish.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's very important to have this information, certainly in totality of the discussion that we will have. Next on deck, Councillor Shea. Just wait till you're unmuted. Councillor Shea, please go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Robinson. This is Councillor Shea. I agree with the statements of the previous three councillors, Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Hutchison, and Councillor Townsend, as well as the Director of Finance. We need to take another look at this, but the thing that's striking me is that we don't have the information that we really need to set a budget that's going to be reasonable and realistic in the circumstances, because we don't know what the circumstances are, and we don't know what they're going to be for the next 3 months or the next 6 months. So I think that asking staff to come back with a recommendation for a new dollar amount is just going to be, a wild guess. I think we should be looking to the CAO to comment about changes in operations. The Director of Finance told us that we could achieve the Mayor's target of 3.5% by simply reducing the bridge reserve, which was a big amount of money that we were setting aside for future bridge repairs. So that was an easy solution, but that didn't begin to speak to operational adjustments. Are we going to have staffing reductions? Will there be layoffs? Are there additional costs coming in? Are there additional cost reductions that are going to be impacting us? I don't think that we're going to be able to, by next Monday, have a realistic assessment of what that's going to look like for the coming year. So I think what we're going to need to do as the leaders, as council, is to say that we are going to take a guess, and we may be wrong. We will probably be wrong. We'll be under or we'll be over, but we need to give some direction to staff and say we're moving and to the community that we're moving forward, and we'll get through this the best we can. So we got from 6.7% to 3.5% by removing one item from the agenda, from one item from the budget, the bridge reserve. So I would suggest that we set a target of 0% increase this year, and have staff just deal with that over the next 6 months. And as I say, I don't expect that we'll be right, but it's just, it would be sending a message to the community that as they are having to, restrain and stop spending and stop earning, West Grey will do something along the similar lines.
Very good, Councillor. Very good, Councillor Shea. Very much appreciate those comments. Next on deck is Deputy Mayor Tom Hutchinson. We'll have your mic unmuted. Deputy Mayor, please state your name and go ahead.
Good morning. It's Deputy Mayor Tom Hutchinson, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak this morning on this. I actually have one question to start, and that would be for our Director of Infrastructure. I'd like to know, at this time, is there any holds up on any of the projects that we were looking to get done?
Director Mighton, if you could answer that, and certainly we have our CAO on deck, and also Van Sherinsky, who's our Director of Infrastructure and Public Works. Okay, I'm just getting an indication. We'll start with our Director of Infrastructure and Public Works, Director Sherinsky. Could you please provide a comment?
Good morning. I have been in touch with engineering firms and construction companies, and from a road building perspective or road construction perspective, they are moving forward. I don't want to say business as usual, but they are accepting tenders and encouraged us to submit tenders for the work that we have planned this year. And at this particular point in time, also with the bridge work that we have on for this year, we have one bridge that requires rehabilitation, and we have another bridge where we have some pre-engineering work to be completed, and I'm confident that Both of those projects could get completed this year. And then other than that, we have some sidewalk replacement and a hot mix project that we are in partnership with Grey Highlands. So that being said, with respect to a project perspective, I've been trying my best to keep my eye on the horizon, and everything changes day to day. But at this point in time, the experts in the field have conveyed to me that they're moving forward.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor, is there anything further?
Yes, thank you for that response and detailed answer. Again, I'm like everybody else. I know just the basics of what we get every day on the COVID-19. So I think based on that, the budget or the cuts that were announced is actually 3 items that I heard from Director Mighton. The 275 of the bridge reserves. We look at the sustainability dark sky, and then the library board brought us down to the 3.5. I think 3.5, myself, I think that's a very responsible number to be working towards right now. Let's not lose sight of the fact that our neighbors have all, they're well ahead of us. They've already got the majority of their budgets put through. I think, you know, if this thing starts to flatten out again, I am not a wizard on where we're going from there, but I think, you know, if we do see in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, if this thing starts to flatten out and things do kind of open up, I think just put everything on hold. And, oh, okay, sorry, I thought it was.
Deputy Mayor, I wonder, from my perspective, and I've just checked with my colleagues, could you speak directly into your mic? Your speech is kind of breaking up a little, so I wonder if you could just go back a bit, please.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry, it was just, yeah, it was the position. So I guess what I was trying to say there is that, you know, let's just, we don't know where we're going to be in next week, next month, 2 months, but to put everything on hold, including the budget, is, I think we got to get moving forward here. And I think those, you know, the 3 suggested ones for what Director Mighton suggested takes us down to 3.5. I still think that is, you know, yeah, I don't know if we're going to achieve 0 because we can't just stop what we're doing. There's some questions on our, for sure, when you go into our operating and for our rentals and whatnot, we don't know that. We can't figure that out. And that's an unknown thing. And I don't think the director might put a number to that. So I think 3.5 is from where I'm standing. And we're still moving ahead with a couple of the projects, because if this thing does flatten out in 2 months, and we are getting some work done, I think that's a good direction. Putting it on, everything on hold until next year is going to compound a huge problem. We still got to maintain. When this does come, we get a green light to get right back. We do have minimum standards, and if we fall further behind, we're going to be in a lot more trouble. So I think getting the director of infrastructure to do some of these projects is a good decision. And I think staff, as we go, they'll be constantly looking for ways to fight and keep the numbers down, cost savings, if you will. The other thing I wanted to make reference to is the fire department does have an opportunity, as our fire chief had said, about this new pump truck that we definitely need, and there was a possibility of an $80,000 to $100,000 savings. He's not in a position right now to move ahead, or even that may not even be available. I don't know, but he can't purchase that outside of budget. So that's $100,000 potential that's on the budget right now. That we continue to hold that up, we may be finding ourselves that we're not going to be able to save that again, if that's even available. So myself, where I stand, I think I precaution that we don't continue to have unnecessary meetings, because there is a financial impact. You know, I'm not going to throw a number at it, but every time we meet, it costs money to the municipality. I think we have all the numbers. We've asked for everything. We've had the worksheets. We don't know where this is going to go, and I think we need to come together as a council and make a decision and get the budget passed today. That's where I'm standing. I don't know what Monday's going to do for us, let alone the end of the month. We don't know what's going to happen, but I think we need to pass something, get some direction, and staff's going to have to work their way through it, finding savings as things develop. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, for those comments. Now on deck is Councillor Hergert. We'll have your mic unmuted. Councillor Hergert, state your name and go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning. This is Councillor Hergert. Thank you very much for everyone who's participating in this. This is not an easy time.
Excuse me, Councillor Hergert.
Yes.
Sorry for interrupting your time to speak. However, could you please talk directly into your mic? We're just having some audio difficulty, and I want to ensure everybody can hear what you have to say.
Absolutely. Is this better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, very good. So Deputy Mayor had just brought up bridge projects as being something that was going to continue on, and thank you to our Director of Infrastructure and Public Works for confirming that. However, in the unilateral decision of subtracting 3 or 4 items being reserve money for bridges, being sustainability and dark skies and library, that's like a unilateral move to reduce those. That's not been talked about before. I guess I am very interested in having a wholesome discussion, and I would look forward to having our CAO describe how the operations have changed, what shifted. Are we redeploying staff members in a different way? Back to the money, is any additional money coming from the province of Ontario or the federal government? And I link these two together with the bridges because our reserve money for $275,000 would be to complete maybe one project where we have 2 grant opportunities available. We have already scaled that $275,000 for bridge reserve repair work. We've already scaled that back. So I am not interested in the unilateral discussion of subtracting $275 out of bridge reserve. To me, that's a need. Now, this entire budget is very similar to our own home finances. If you haven't looked through your own home finances, I might suggest you do. We have in front of us an opportunity. Maybe some would say, oh, we're already in Q2. I can't even believe we don't have this budget passed. However, maybe we should be very thankful that we don't have it passed yet. We have a sobering opportunity to look at this again and say, what is an absolute need to get through this year? I am not interested in the quick move to just minus these 3 things and we'll move on. There are other areas in which we could consider. We give out $32,000, I believe it's $32,500 in additional monies to various organizations for all the good works that they do. However, this year, since COVID has happened, Bruce Power, they also are very generous. They're $2 million of philanthropy per year. They have actually rescinded their offers to other organizations and committed all of that money to the healthcare system. So I think there are lots of opportunities to scale back. There's another opportunity with the youth initiative for about $7,500. I'm not sure if we'll even have enough time to plan something like that, let alone the attendance level of a first-year project. I think there are lots of other ways that we could look at this budget and find the savings that needs to be found. We look, the rest of our agenda today has opportunities to defer payment. It also talks about tax sales. If you get into our financials for later, there is a tax sale in there already. So taxes are not easy for people to come by. The first thing people are going to think of are their basic needs, and that's food and shelter. And, you know, we already had a problem with, housing before this. I can't see that there's going to be, this budget would make it any easier. I cannot see that it would make it any easier. So we also have the discussion about a police building, $4 to $6 million project we're going to kickstart in a possible recession year. I think we should have another look at that. I do appreciate Carrie going through, the opportunities in which we could still pass this today. And I know Carrie our Director of Finance, has taken a lot of time and been very, diligent about our requests to figure out a different way, to find the reserve money, to find grant opportunities and so on. And actually, I'd like to commend our CAO and all the rest of staff below, as we have had a grant that was successful through the modernization money. So we have been able to find more grants than ever before, but this is a different year. And so I think we need to have the meeting on Monday, have a full discussion about how the operations have changed or shifted, what we're doing, any additional monies from the government, provincial or federal, and also to the thought of how, what is the range that we should be at in a year of a complete downturn in the economy? Will those houses be built? What does that do to our building department? Our library is currently closed. We've got a couple online things. So what has changed? And I think we really need to take the time and look at that. And I think we'll be better off for just taking the time and reviewing it in whole. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Herger. And I want to say that certainly this is the perfect time by which our council, and I'm saying this again, we have an opportunity here. Our budget has not been passed, and this is the perfect opportunity that we could take a fine lens in terms of what is recommended, what we need for operations and capital to keep our West Grey advancing, being very cognizant of the economics in our community. So absolutely, the kickstart to this whole presentation was to get an idea that we're not the same. We're not the same a month ago, so that we absolutely need to take the time to take a look at it. If we were, this council, able to move along the budget today and by way of the discussion, then so be it. If there, and certainly in terms of the discussion where we're needing more time to take a look at it, get that information before us at another meeting, so be it. That is absolutely the will of this council representing the citizens. So I'm very pleased with all of the discussions from members of council. The idea certainly is that my opening remarks was the recommended percentage needed to be lowered. And I looked at a range, and Director Mighton provided some options, some examples. That's not all of what this council would be looking at. It was just a starting point. And I really appreciate all of the comments from our members of council, because you have other starting points for the discussion. And I see that as we move along, if council so determines another meeting is required, then that certainly would be a healthy approach to that. That's just in summary. I do see that Councillor Hutchinson and Councillor Shea have their hands up. Councillor Hutchinson first. You have an open mic now.
Yeah, Councillor Hutchinson here. So I'd be willing to make a motion at this point to defer the budget until Monday, April 13th, for further discussion. I think we've raised a lot of good points. From my experience, I've realized that sometimes it's important just to take the time, make sure you get it right. And I think this is one of those opportunities that we can make sure that we get it right before we go forward. So, and given that there are a lot of unknowns, but I would really like to hear staff comments in terms of what we're looking at and what we know at this point. Just to further that, so I would make that motion. Just to further that, I understand where Councillor or Deputy Mayor Hutchinson's coming from, and if need be, given the time and the situation, that I would be willing to give up my per meeting DM that day on Monday, just to so that we can have the meeting, and shows a little bit of support for what's happening out there, that a lot of people are without work at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Hutchinson. It's important that this council have thorough discussions on everything we do, and it certainly goes online with what we've been doing up till now. So I very much appreciate that. I'm looking for a seconder on this, and then I will have Clerk Turner read the motion and then see if there's any comments, questions, or concerns following that. So I did see Councillor Shea's hand up. we'll have it unmuted. Councillor Shea, please proceed.
I wanted to make a separate comment, but I believe Councillor Hergert had indicated an interest in seconding.
Okay, that's very fine. Let me jump over to Councillor Hergert, and then I will come back to you. Okay, would you mind that?
Nope, great.
Thank you. All right, Councillor Hergert.
Yes, I, Councillor Hergert, would support the motion to defer until Monday's meeting. And I would also second the deferral of payment for that day. I think it is important we get this right.
Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. I'm going to have Clerk Turner read the motion and then go back for comments and questions. And I am going to start with Councillor Shea.
Well, so I was making a separate comment.
Councillor Shea, I'm just going to have Clerk Turner read the motion and then come back to you first and then go through the line. But I just want to ask the mover and seconder, would you be okay with a 9 a.m. start? Councillor Hutchinson? I'm sorry, yeah, Councillor Hutchinson, would you be okay with a 9 a.m. start? I'm just getting your mic unmuted. Councillor Hutchinson, please.
Sure. Councillor Hutchinson, yes, I would be in favor of that. I'm just wondering too that maybe we should make that two separate motions, just because I throw in there about the volunteering to give up our pay for that day. Maybe make that a separate motion.
Yeah, and I'm just going to have, before that motion, a comment from our Director of Finance on that. But Councillor Hergert, are you fine with the 9 a.m. start? And I'm going to split those motions. So your mic will be unmuted in 1 second.
Yes, I, Councillor Hergert, am fine with a 9 a.m. start. If we wanted to start earlier, I'd be okay with that. I get to wear slippers.
We're going to start with 9 a.m. We've got to, we'll just move along with that. Okay, so I am going to have Clerk Turner read that motion first, and then a comment from Director Mighton with regard to that second motion. See if that is in order, please. Clerk Turner. We're just waiting for Clerk Turner to be unmuted.
Yes, so I'm suggesting that there be two motions because the budget bylaw itself should be dealt with at the bylaw stage, and then a motion be entertained at that time to defer the budget bylaw. So for this meeting, I would suggest that the motion read, be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby schedules a special committee of the whole meeting budget for Monday, April 13th, 2020, 9 a.m. And of course, that's an electronic meeting. I'll add electronic meeting after the budget. I would also suggest, perhaps maybe with the input of the Director of Finance, that if a member council wishes to forego their per diem or their meeting rate, that they would just advise the Director of Finance. I don't think a motion is required for that.
Okay, thank you very much with regard to the motion part. Director Mike, do you have anything else to comment with regard to the stipend portion?
Yep, if the intention is that you want a consensus that no one puts it in, you may want a motion. Otherwise, some may put it in and some may not, and we will pay accordingly.
So if it's an individual members of council call, Clerk Turner suggesting we don't need a motion, members of council can just act on it. Okay, for that. So Clerk Turner, just read the motion again, and I want to confirm it with the mover and seconder, and we can have the vote on this, and I will entertain any questions or comments on the motion as well.
So moved by Councillor Hutchison, second by Councillor Hergert. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby schedules a special committee of the whole budget electronic meeting for Monday, April 13th, 2020, 9 a.m.
Okay. Councillor Hutchinson, are you clear with the motion that you're moving?
Yes, Councillor Hutchison, yes, that's clear.
Councillor Hergert, are you clear with the motion that you are seconding?
Councillor Hergert seconds it.
All right, thank you. I'm just taking questions or comments, starting with Councillor Shea. I'm back up to you, please.
So in this meeting on Monday, we're going to look at a essential services lights on version of the budget, I believe, and try to reduce it as much as possible. So my question is to the CAO, Johnson, if you are going to be able to provide information to us by Monday that would inform this discussion, or are we going to be just grasping at straws?
CAO Johnston, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Councillor Shea. Thank you for that question. It's a very good question. As I'm listening carefully and contemplating what information I could provide that would help with budget decisions, it is such a moving target that I really want to make sure that whatever staff and I can bring to council is the facts that we have at that time. I can share that we can certainly look at the budget and operations. There's some things that we absolutely will need to do, and I believe it was Deputy Mayor who mentioned about minimum maintenance standards. There's things that we will have to pay for the balance of 2020. We can look at that. Staff are continuing to work. We are an essential service. There's work that's happening even now. But I appreciate your question, Councillor, because it will be much more of a discussion like we're having today because there's so many unknowns.
Okay, Councillor Shea, anything further? We'll unmute you, Councillor Shea. Anything further?
I guess specifically, I'll be wondering if our staffing levels are changing. We had a comment about reducing the library's budget. I believe that increase they requested was for increasing staff. But I can't imagine that there aren't people in the municipal staff that whose jobs are difficult or maybe perhaps not even impossible to do in the current circumstance. So I don't know if you will be able on Monday to talk about staffing levels or if that's just too far out of the pale. But I'll leave that with you. I don't require an answer at this point.
Okay. But what I would like to say, thank you, Councillor Shea, for all of that, is that always our staff will provide the best possible information and options, and that every member of council has an opportunity to ask questions and of our staff, and in terms of what potential options could be available and viable for this community, and that everybody is able to have their questions by council asked, and also when our staff are providing those answers, that there's respect for one and all in terms of the options. So everything will be taken a look at our meeting. I will call the vote to see how that moves forward. But I just want to ensure that we've taken some notes here in terms of potential ideas or options with regard to the budget, and how we can arrive at a very reasonable budget for this community in light of the pandemic that we are currently in. So there's an opportunity to do that now. I do see that Councillor Townsend has his hand up. Councillor Townsend, go ahead.
Yes, it's Councillor Townsend, and what I want to do is, I agree with Councillor Shea to get as much as we can, but I also want a little different perspective. Our Director of Infrastructure was basically indicating that there's quite a bit we can do. I'd be interested in what we have to do from two perspectives. During the budget cycle, we actually had decided on doing 2 bridges and had to redirect the priority because it was discovered that there was a serious problem with another bridge. So it shows us some of our bridges are tenuous in the sense of keeping them open. And I'm not sure we want to make the decision to just continually reduce just for the sake of reduction when we have that kind of information or situation happening. So I guess I'd also like to know for Monday if in fact there are things that we cannot avoid because we can't create such a backlog that we will not be able to move forward, or we're going to create serious issues on transportation and moving around throughout the municipality if we don't do certain infrastructure projects or continue at least a minimum level of those infrastructure projects. So hopefully, because the director of infrastructure seemed to have a good handle on those, I'd be interested in making sure we understand that as well.
Yeah, and we get your point in terms of we need to continue to advance our West Grey to
Exactly.
be a vital and viable community. Absolutely, absolutely, hands down. Okay, so oh, okay, I am. Okay, Director Mighton, please go ahead. Thank you for that moment there. I was just getting some information from our director, which she will now say into the mic.
So there was a second part to Mark Crowder's submitted question. I had only received part of it, but I did get the balance of it. So I will read it now just for completeness. So she does further elaborate. I do appreciate the fact you are suggesting the waiving of penalty interest, but that is not enough. Do you realize how many small businesses will not be back in business? Do you realize how many people will not have a job to return to? I am not suggesting you have another 7 budget meetings, but perhaps consider that this is not the year to put money into reserves. I know there are great bridge needs, and yes, municipalities do need reserves, but I say it again, this is not the year to build reserves. Give your ratepayers some consideration. Even a 5% increase would be a little respectful for your people. Both the federal and provincial governments have moved in an unprecedented manner to assist the population through these difficult days ahead. Perhaps West Grey Council could show some initiative on their part. Yours truly, Mark Crowder. I apologize for missing the balance of her email.
Okay, thank you, Director Mighton, and I appreciate that you acknowledged that there was a second part to that the comment during the public meeting from the citizen. I think it was important for completeness for that to be heard. So just in the entirety, there's no other comments, right, that you've received? That's good. All right, so we do have a motion on the floor that was moved and seconded. I do see that there is a hand up. We'll have that mic unmuted for Councillor Hergert.
If I may just follow up on Marg's point there about how much money we have this year going into reserves. Carrie, would you be able to answer that question?
Yes, our Director Mighton will be able to provide that. Just one moment, please.
Thank you. Bit out of order because there is a motion on it.
Councillor Hergert, your mic is open.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure if it's a bit out of order because, you know, we do have a motion on the floor.
It's okay to ask the question where
Okay.
the motion has been moved and seconded. Questions are certainly absolutely fine. So please just wait for the response from Director Mighton.
Thank you.
We are putting in $531,000 into reserves this year.
Okay. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Are there any other questions or comments? Because we've had a little bit of dialogue, Clerk Turner, I would appreciate for everyone if you could read the motion and then I will call the question. Clerk Turner, please.
Moved by Councillor Hutchison, seconded by Councillor Hergert. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby schedules a special Committee of the Whole Budget Electronic Meeting for Monday, April 13th, 2020, 9 a.m.
On the motion, all those in favor, please signify by the check mark, which is a yes. All right. I'm starting to identify how I am voting. I, Mayor Christine Robinson, am voting in favor of this motion. Councillor Hamilton, please state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor, excuse me, Councillor Hamilton, in favor.
Councillor Hergert, yes.
Councillor Hutchison, yes.
Councillor Shea, yes.
Councillor Townsend, yes.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, yes.
Sorry, I'm going to state that again because my mic was on mute for that time. Let the record show that the vote was carried unanimously. So that is great. And thank you, members of council. We need to move this ahead for our citizens. And I very, very much appreciate all of the discussion. A little bit more work ahead of us on the 13th. So it's important to represent the citizens. So well done for that. I do want to say that we are moving on to continue on our agenda. So we are now on part one. We are now on part one, consent agenda. Clerk Turner, oh, actually, before we do the consent agenda, this is the perfect time to have an update from Chief Phil Schwartz on the COVID-19. So members of council, we're just going to permit the new business item to be brought forward so that we can have this presentation. Would you mind just clicking yes if you're in favor that we can move the agenda ahead? I would like to have the consensus of council on this. And if you're not in favor, of course, there's the X mark. So that, and I have to participate as part of this. So yes, thank you very much, council, for just having a change in the agenda. So we welcome our Fire Chief Schwartz, who will be providing an update on COVID-19. Welcome, and please go ahead.
I'm on then? Okay. First of all, I hope everybody's fine and well in these trying times. It's changed the way we do business and the way we live our lives. We activated our EOC, I believe it was back on the 17th of March. We had 2 face-to-face meetings. After that, we went to doing Zoom meetings, 3 and 4 per week. Our achievements, we've closed all the West Grey facilities and programs down. We're keeping the mayor, deputy mayor, and the staff informed of all ongoing issues and coming up with solutions for those issues as they arise. Up to date, April the 6th, which is yesterday for Grey Bruce, there was 5 new cases. 26 as of yesterday. I heard today that there was 29 on the news. I'm not sure whether that was the right figure or not. I haven't heard from Dr. Ayer today. He sends me his update about 3 in the afternoon. 7 of those cases were health care providers. One's been hospitalized. 1 long-term care facility has reported 1 case. 9 recovered cases and no deaths in Grey Bruce. In the province of Ontario, as of yesterday, there was 4,300 confirmed cases, 132 deaths, and 1,600 recovered cases. I've rounded those numbers off. There's some change there too, but just in Canada, 16,653 confirmed cases, 323 deaths, and 3,616 people recovered. As of yesterday, in the province of Ontario, I did hear that we have started to flatten the curve a bit. There was the increase yesterday is lower numbers than it's been over the last 3 weeks. So hopefully we're starting to crunch it down. last week I met with Chief Martin. We looked at the fire hall for lodging for the police officers. We'd be using the meeting room, likely putting in 2 or 4 cots. If he starts losing guys due to sickness, we would likely have to have the guys staying 24 hours a day, maybe up to a 72-hour shift. We're not sure yet. He's discussed that. We've put our shower at the fire hall, which was a mop closet for the last 35 years, has now been repainted and shower head put back in, so it's up and running. So the firefighters and the police officers, if they have to decontaminate, can shower and not take this home. What else have I got here? The fire ban was put in on Friday. That was put in at the request of the Brockton Fire Chief, who wanted me to put a ban in for the coverage for the Elmwood area. It's easier to do the whole municipality is try to draw lines all over the back roads of where you can and cannot have a fire. So we instituted for the whole municipality, and other municipalities have followed suit. Hanover has put one on, which covers part of West Grey. So Elmwood's with Brockton, so they're on. And south of here, down in Wellington County, there's several. And of course, you know that Northern Ontario and the Bruce Peninsula, the Ministry of, I guess it was the Ministry of Environment or Natural Resources, that's what I'm looking for. They put one on for the forest fires. And the whole idea is to keep our firefighters out of the fire trucks so they can practice social distancing. That's what it comes down to. If we can prevent some grass fires this spring, then that's less time our firefighters have to spend time together. We've also canceled in the fire department, we've canceled all our training. We have had no training for over a month now. I don't know how we're going to come by that. I hate to lose that time. When the vehicles go out, they come back in, they have to be sanitized. So the guys are spending a little extra time washing vehicles, especially if they're medical calls. What else have I got here? Remember that locally, Gemini down in Newstead has started to manufacture face masks for emergency services. I put an order in for 50 to start. I didn't want to be piggish because there's a lot of other emergency services in the area that are looking for masks as well. And I imagine they'll be shipping Canadian wide. I don't know what they're producing a day, but they've started up a whole line. Mrs. So-and-so, my wife, is now making surgical masks and surgical gowns. To date, she's made well over 200 masks. She started on last Thursday, I guess. Orders coming in from South Grey Support Services. Several fire departments are asking for it. And the gowns are for South Grey support, as well as possibly some going to the hospital. And that she's got three other ladies working with her from their homes, so she's just dropping off supplies. She's already, for the face mask, the surgical face mask, the elastic that holds them over your ears, she can no longer get those elastics, so she's putting ties on them now. They're going back to the old way that you did it, but that's all she can do. Her supplier out west in Alberta is called Pancar, something like that. And they sell all the sewing stuff. A big warehouse out there. They can no longer get elastic either. So supplies are running short. I did hear today that 3M has refused the presidential order, and they will be shipping into Canada N95 masks. Other than that, wash your hands, wipe everything down, practice social distancing, and if you can, stay home. That's all I got.
Thank you very, very much, Chief Schwartz, for the detailed update, and certainly all the work you're doing with regard to our role here in West Grey. And I just want to commend you, your firefighters, certainly Chief Martin, and our wonderful West Grey Police Service, everyone, our businesses and our citizens. Certainly, we're all in together on this, and we will get through this. So I very much appreciate the comment. I'm just looking if there are any questions or comments with regard to this new business update on the pandemic. I do see a couple. I'm going to start with Councillor Townsend, please. We'll have your mic unmuted.
Yes, thank you very much. It's Councillor Townsend. A question for Chief Schwartz through to the emergency committee or team. lately there's been a few posts on Facebook, social media, that have proven to be reliable about certain events where people are encountering more violence. One local auto shop, actually, the owner got attacked because he couldn't supply what someone needed. And I'm not sure what was behind that, but I'm wondering if we're seeing an increase in that. And if we do, is there a plan to deal with it?
Chief Schwartz, please. Yeah, and we will have his Chief Schwartz mic unmuted.
That might be a question better answered by our police chief, but I did hear that there has been some confrontations over the last few weeks. One was in a local business over in Hanover. Just before you go into Hanover, a big place on the north side there was a confrontation between some people that were going in their shops. So locally, I haven't heard anything or what's going on in the Durham or Newstead or Ayton area. But I would imagine that people's dandruff is starting to get up because it's a real change of how we do business and do life. And I do commend the people of West Grey. If you go downtown right now, there's hardly anybody down there. People are staying home. The biggest problem I see is with the kids. The children and kids are still out playing. They need to maybe stay home better than they are. So I did see a group of kids walk past my place on Saturday afternoon. There had to be 20 kids in the crowd. But other than that, that's all I've heard.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Townsend?
Yes, I was just going to ask for a follow-up. Again, I wonder if that concern could be communicated through to the chief. And
Absolutely.
Sort of a response provided, perhaps even.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be conveyed.
If not before, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. You're quite.
Hi, it's Councillor Shea. Thanks for the report, Chief. You said the Emergency Operations Committee is meeting 3 to 4 times a week, identifying issues and arriving at solutions. Do you think, for my benefit and the public, you could give me a sample or two of what sort of issues and solutions you guys are identifying?
Well, the biggest thing right now we've been doing is business continuity for West Grey ourselves, keeping our office going here and keeping our staff separated. That's how come they've gone to, I'll say 2 shifts. I don't know what you want to call it. As well as shutting the fire halls down and all the facilities. That's the biggest thing we're running into. Some people are asking, they're complaining that they've got things rented or whatever. And as far as groups and church groups and things go, that's all shut down by the province. So basically the biggest thing we're dealing with is business continuity and keeping the parks closed. Kids still want to go in the parks. They go around the signs and over the tape to play on the playground. I don't know how you get away from that. Kids are kids, right? So that's basically the biggest thing I've run into so far.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. And I would just add, it's a coordinated effort. So when we're closing parks or trails, it's having that coordinated effort to having the signage put up and just conveying the information. We get together, have that conversation, ensure the message that we need or the direction that we need to provide to our citizens is out timely. So it's a huge coordinated effort. And so thank you very much for that question. I'm not seeing any other comments or questions on this update. So again, Chief Schwartz, thank you very much for your time on this and very well done. We will get through this. Hopefully it will end soon, but we're on top of it all. So thank you very much for your time. All right. So members of council and citizens listening in, we are now on item 8, which is, oh no, we are on part 1, pardon me, part 1 consent agenda. We are on part 1 consent agenda. As I call this meeting back to order. And before I ask the clerk to read the motion, I see that Deputy Mayor Hutchinson has his hand up. Could you please unmute Deputy Mayor? Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. It's Deputy Mayor Tom Hutchinson here.
Yep.
Just for clarity, I still not clear on the Monday meeting. If we had to do a motion to pass, or where that's fitting in, because I'm still I've got that note left open for the per diem.
Oh,
Thank
for the,
Yeah, I did my understanding was clerk didn't think we needed to do it, but then
Right.
Director Wightman thought we did, and I'd like to get that resolved, please.
so here's the clarity of which you are seeking. So we're all clear that we're having a special meeting of council on Monday, April 13th at 9 a.m. So we'll get all of that, the particulars for that good discussion on the budget. With regard to the idea of if you do not want to pay or be paid for that meeting, just let our Director of Finance and Treasurer know. Just send her an email that you choose not to be paid for that meeting. And that actually, I confirm through the clerk, it's a committee of the whole meeting for the budget, not a special council meeting. So that's fine. So just for clarity purposes, just let Director Mighton know in an email that you will not want to be paid for that meeting. Okay? Deputy Mayor, does that satisfy your question? You have the mic.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you, Mayor Robinson, for the clarity. I just wanted to know the direction on that. Thank you.
No, that's fine. Absolutely. If you have a question, clarity needs to be sought. All right, members of council, and certainly those listening in from our public, we are on part 1 consent agenda. Clerk Turner, please. He will be unmuted now.
So we do have a motion. Be it resolved that items A1 to B1 inclusive contained in part 1 consent agenda be adopted as amended, and further that authorization be given for the actions to be taken as may be necessary to give effect to the recommendations contained therein. Now, the amendments involve the 2 consent resolutions that this resolution would approve. The first one relates to the approval of council and committee of the whole minutes and the receiving of other committees, local and joint board minutes. There is a change. It was brought to my attention by Councillor Hutchison that on the March 3rd, 2020 committee of the whole meeting draft minutes, that he was noted as being in attendance at the Ontario Good Roads Association conference, where in fact he was not. So that motion would be required to be amended. And relating to the second consent item, that this resolution that would amend, the holding, just the formalization of approving some future council and committee of the whole meetings. It was noted in the motion, Councillor Hamilton noted that I had left in the council chambers, and of course we are meeting electronically, so that has been removed. And in that resolution, it does in fact state that there are electronic meetings coming up.
Thank you very much, Clerk Turner, for that. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Townsend, I will have your mic unmuted. Are you moving this motion?
It's Councillor Townsend, and yes, I am, please.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton, are you seconding this motion?
Councillor Hamilton, I am seconding the motion.
Thank you. Clear your boards, please. Now, are there any questions with regard to this motion, members of council? All right. Thank you. Seeing none. So all those in favor, members of council, signify by your check mark yes. And if you are opposed to this, please signify by the no X mark. All right. I will begin. As Mayor Christine Robinson, I am in favor of this motion. Councillor Hutchinson, state your name and the way you are voting.
Councillor Hutchison, yes.
Councillor Hamilton, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hamilton, yes.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, state your name and how you are voting.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, yes.
Councillor Shea, please state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Shea, yes.
Councillor Hergert, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hergert, yes.
Councillor Townsend, please state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Townsend, yes.
Thank you very much. The votes are unanimous for this motion, and it has carried. All right, we are now moving on to item 8, part 2, regular agenda. And before I do that, I just note on the dialogue board here, there's a question raised. Councillor Hergert, we'll have your mic unmuted. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. As it relates to minutes of separate boards or joint boards and so on, I have requested from the chair of the
Councillor Hergert, sorry to interrupt. Could you please restate what you're saying and speak directly into the mic if you possibly can?
Yes, so as this relates to minutes of meetings of joint boards and committees and commissions and so on, I have requested from the chair of the Saugeen Municipal Airport to receive the minutes of the meeting since July of last year, and I have not been able to access those. I have also asked for our clerk if he has received these minutes from the Saugeen Airport from July of 2019.
Councillor Hergert, if
Yes.
you can hear me, when you just started to say you're asking if our clerk, and then your voice dropped off. Could you take it from there, please?
I had asked if our clerk has received the minutes since July of 2019 until present for the Saugeen Airport Commission. And the last I had checked, our clerk, Mark, had not received those.
Okay, thank you for your inquiry on that. Clerk Turner, a response to Councillor Hergert's inquiry.
I have not received Saugeen Municipal Airport minutes. Certainly in the last while, it could be back to 2019. I guess I can follow up with the manager there, or again, that's an issue you may have to address again with the commission.
So what I'm going to suggest before I go back to Councillor Hergert is certainly put that request in an email, whether to the manager, to the chair of the airport authority, and please copy Councillor Hergert on that and requesting those minutes in totality. Okay, Councillor Hergert, anything further?
No, thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. Okay. So we are now on item 9, which is communications from mayor and members of council. I will start, and then I'm going to call upon each member of council for your update. And if you do not have one, then simply state nothing to say. That's fine. And I'm going to, once I start, I'm going to have the visual horseshoe, if you will, and I will start with Councillor Hutchinson after following me. So for this item, I just wanted to take a moment to provide a status report on the local impact of coronavirus, recognizing that we did have the update from Chief Schwartz. Here are my comments. So on March 23rd, the Municipality of West Grey declared a state of emergency due to COVID-19 pandemic. So the reason for the state of emergency is that it allows for funding and additional resources from the province. It also lends itself to a more coordinated effort from the province and neighboring municipalities. Since then, we've been in constant contact with officials from public health, Grey County, the federal and provincial partners. We hold regular meetings of our emergency control group for updates and decision-making. Dr. Ian Era at the Grey Bruce Health Unit, who is the medical officer of health, has led the charge locally, and we cannot thank him enough for his efforts against this unprecedented health crisis. For our own part, we've been steadfast and focused in making sure critical services continue uninterrupted. We know that this is so important for our residents. Garbage and recycling pickup have continued as usual. Water and wastewater in Durham and Neustadt are being closely monitored and are operating safely. There are no roads closed in West Grey, and there's some road maintenance being done. And of course, to our fire and police service, we completely and simply can't say enough to Chief Schwartz and Chief Martin. They have been extremely instrumental throughout this, and I would pass along all of the support we're hearing from the community. We know the work you do is challenging and important, and thank you very much. I know these difficult times. I know that these are difficult times, and we must see this through. Please follow the instructions of the province and federal government. Stay home and only leave for essentials such as food and medicine. Wash your hands thoroughly and often. As we self-isolate, remember to reach out, to make a few phone calls to family and friends, and try to stay connected. The Government of Ontario's website is the best source of update information on COVID-19, and certainly the website for the Grey Bruce Public Health Unit is full of information. Also follow along on our West Grey website as well for information. We will continue sharing news as we work through this together. Thank you very much. All right, Councillor Hutchinson, you're on deck. We'll have your mic muted, rather unmuted. Certainly go ahead, Councillor.
Okay, just sort of lost my spot here temporarily, but yeah, I'd just like to reiterate that this sort of tough times right now. Encourage people to follow the rules, in particular social distancing, be safe out there, and together we're going to beat this thing. It's just a matter of time. Just a reminder to that the library board is going to have an electronic meeting next Wednesday, I think it is, April 22nd at 1:30 for anyone who would like to tune into that. The directions will be posted at a later date. And finally, I'd just like to thank all the staff for their hard work that they're doing to accommodate people at this time. Thank all the frontline workers and all the people that are going out of their way to try to beat this thing. So unprecedented times, and but if we hang in there, we're gonna get through it. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Hutchinson, and that's a very thorough update. And I appreciate that you mentioned about the West Grey Library Board meeting. I will certainly be virtually in attendance, barring any teleconference that I might have with the province or public health or county. But I certainly would like to listen in on the library board meeting. Okay, Councillor Hamilton, please. We'll have your mic unmuted. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. I was just reflecting on how it feels like a lifetime ago since we last met as council in person in the chamber, and how I think this time of pandemic will always be remembered as the time before COVID and then the time after, and will forever be marked in our memories. And right now we're in the messy middle, and we're in the middle of the pandemic, and certainly this challenging time's made harder by not knowing how long this will go on. And the province recently shared that they expect the pandemic to last anywhere from 18 months to 2 years. And that's very difficult news to hear, but I also trust that this isn't going to last forever. We will get through this. And West Grey is a resilient community. We are a caring community. And so it's no surprise that our community is creatively finding new ways to support and stay connected. So I'd like to highlight how recently the West Grey Durham Lions challenged our community to hang a blue ribbon in every yard in West Grey to show our support for all those who are going to work to keep us safe. And Eckert's Floral Treasures jumped into action and started making bows. And they quickly sold out of nearly 200 bows. What an incredible show of support for essential service workers. At Elmwood Community Center, personal protective equipment was collected and given to Chapman House Hospice, who greatly appreciated the donation of gloves and hand sanitizers. West Grey is a caring community. We can count on each other, and we have many community supports. I encourage the youth of our community, if they need someone to talk to, They can connect with the Kids Help Phone. They can text 686868. Our local United Way of Grey Bruce is coordinating volunteers. There's an eagerness to be of help. You can contact the United Way. They will help channel your energy into ways of helping. They're also providing many supports. And always available to our community is calling 211 for social, health, and government programming. In our area, it's available 24/7, and it's confidential and it's free. And as your rep on the Saugeen Mobility and Regional Transit Board, I want to share that SMART continues to operate throughout the pandemic, providing transit for those with mobility challenges. We continue to provide rides to medical appointments within Grey Bruce. We have put measures in place to protect our riders, our staff, and this vital service. We are screening passengers before every ride, and of course we've increased cleaning as well. The board is working closely with the manager and monitoring updates from all levels of government and public health. So West Grey, we are in this together and we will get through this. Let's all keep up the good work of staying home to save lives. Thank you, Mayor Robinson.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Very, very much appreciate those comments. And I also want to say that the flyer that we sent out from the Municipality of West Grey that will be in everyone's mailbox, because there's a flyer with helpful information and messaging and direction. We provided that flyer, recognizing that we need always to get the word out. Not everybody has a computer, a cell phone, electronic means, so we've conveyed that information. And the reason I bring this forward is there's also an opportunity to hang white bows. That was another option. So for people to just acknowledge the hardworking frontline workers that we have. Okay, so now I will go to Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor Robinson.
Yep.
Mayor Hutchinson here. First off, I just want to say how happy I am that this COVID-19 has minimal impact in our community. I think the numbers are really good. We've all done a great job as a community keeping that to a minimum. Yes, there are some cases, but it could be a heck of a lot worse. I'm very pleased with the high level of service that our staff and employees continue to provide to West Grey. They are out there, they are taking care of things and keeping the lights on in our municipality. Last but not least, I do want to just say thank you very much. I hope you can still hear me well. But last but not least is a special thank to all our frontline providers. Their dedication, they're putting themselves out there at risk, and they are keeping things safe for all of us. And other than that, stay home and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hutchinson. Councillor Shea, please, we'll have your mic unmuted.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. I don't have a whole lot to add. We haven't been meeting or doing face-to-face council business for ages, it seems. I have been communicating with citizens by email and phone. And one of the messages that I've been hearing is people being unclear about how to interpret and apply the quote-unquote rules, the new rules that pertain to social distancing. I've had people say things like, well, if we're allowed to meet in groups of 5, what if we're a group of 5 and there's another adjacent group of 5 nearby, would that count? And I think those people are missing the core message. And that is that we should be, treating everyone as though we have the virus and that we need to stay away from them for their safety and for our safety. So I think, the rules are great, but the fact that the county and the province are sort of reiterating these rules over and over is great. But I do think it would be nice if we could get the message out a little bit more generally and not make it sound like it's a sort of a kind of a legislated mandate, but it's something that people need to be encouraged to buy into. I'll just add that, all committees that I've been involved with have been suspended, more or less, except for Arts Fest has been continuing to meet. Arts Fest was scheduled to happen in July. It's unlikely that that will happen, but we haven't pulled the plug yet. we're going to wait another month before we pull the plug. And if we do pull the plug, we're going to try to create some sort of online event to take its place. So we'll keep you posted about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shea. Councillor Hergert, please. I will have your mic unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. A lot of good information has been provided by council already. I just want to
Oh my goodness, Councillor Hergert, I'm terribly sorry to interrupt you. That's certainly what I don't want to do overall. However, we can't hear you. Could you strive to talk in the mic?
Yes. Hello?
Yes, go
Okay.
for it.
Yeah, there's been a lot of great information that's been provided by council already, and thanks to those who have gone above and beyond job descriptions, you know, in-house or, you know, any of our emergency services, of course. And just be kind to everyone. We're all going through this, so just be kind. That's it.
Good message, be kind. Absolutely. Councillor Townsend, you are next. We'll have your mic unmuted.
Thank you. It's Councillor Townsend. A couple of things. The biggest thing that I've been participating in weekly is the Bruce Power Town Halls. They happen every Wednesday at 5 p.m. It's amazing the information you get from there. And you also get a little more in some aspects from what you get in the press. For example, there were 600,000 masks distributed. The public announcement said it was for Ontario, which was true, but Bruce Power made it very clear that they in fact were keeping 100,000 of them in the tri-county area they were talking about, which is our area, Grey, Bruce, here in Perth. And so the idea being that what happens is they're serving their own area as well as the rest of Ontario, and that's really good to know. They're an absolutely great partner. Their assistance in food banks is amazing, and again, I've been hearing from residents, and even some of them are calling to say, how do I give to a food bank? Who else should I give to? And things like that. So there are quite a few people that are in fact looking to be helpful. So it's not just us and it's not just the majors. You're also getting the smaller people, the residents down to that level to say, you know, they're willing to give and support. The library board's been active adjusting to the services online where they can. They realize they can't distribute books, for example, because of what may get transmitted, and then how do you get them back and clean up and et cetera. So they've suspended that, and that was a recommendation of the library board, the Ontario Library Association. Also from another perspective is the Durham Legion's 80th anniversary is this year. And while they're doing some planning as we speak, the details and dates of the actual events will not be forthcoming just because of the situation with the pandemic and COVID-19. But as soon as that's available, they certainly will. And I believe that their anniversary is around the mid-July timeframe. So that in itself could get interesting depending on what happens. I am hearing concern about safety, as I mentioned earlier, about events and tempers getting a little carried away. Even as it relates to some of our police, believe it or not, that maybe they're a little overzealous in enforcement. And so that complaint's been forwarded on, I know. And the other and last thing is I did attend the Ogre Conference in Toronto in February, and those materials from that have now been posted. In case you haven't seen the notice, I thought I would share that. And once again, recommend looking at the asset management side, because it really shows just how much work and what the result is of not doing it completely or correctly, and not involving your partners as well, like the province or other counties or municipalities that we do business with. Lastly, that's thank everyone that has been working. I know it's a bit more than Chief Swartz mentioned that the emergency team does, for example. I'm sure you're looking at all the announcements from the province and the feds, interpreting what does it mean for you, what does it mean for our people. And with the amount coming out, that's not a minor deal. And I wanted to give a huge shout out for that, because it can't be easy. And I do appreciate how you've prompted and got even further clarification, even like the one that came out this morning regarding the campgrounds and who can and cannot go there. And so again, keep up the great work. And as far as the rest of it goes, we'll just hang in there. And thanks, staff, for keeping us going and also helping us hold these meetings. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.
Thank you very much for that. And thank you all members of council for providing an update in communications for the other members of council, but certainly for our citizens. Before we move on to item 10, I do see that there's a hand up. We'll have the mic unmuted. Councillor Herger, please.
Yes, thank you. Earlier we were speaking about if there would be more money or coming from the province or the federal government, and there has been a recent announcement about that. And so I'll look forward to our CAO bringing that back maybe on Monday if we can. It looks like Grey County is going to receive $2.3 million, and we'll have to see what that actually is to go to and so on. But that's a recent announcement out of Bill Walker's office.
Well, thank you for that. Certainly we have a Grey County Council meeting this Thursday, and our Director of Finance and Treasurer will provide an update at our meeting on Monday, April 13th, and certainly our CAO could provide an update. Thank you for that. Okay, so you can clear your hand. Thank you very much for that. All right, we are now moving on to item 10, delegations. There are none for this particular agenda. Item 11, business arising from the previous meeting. Is there any business? So I'm looking on the panel, seeing none. Item 12, we are now on staff reports. Just to give you a bit of a synopsis here, we have 3 staff reports from our Director of Finance and Treasurer and 1 report from our clerk. So to begin, Director of Finance and Treasurer, starting with your report dealing with accounts for approval. Director Mighton, any comments on this, please?
Yep, the first set of accounts does include our payment for our annual insurance. It was over $300,000, and in the second group of accounts, it does include our first installment of school board and county levies.
Out that my numbering was off on my agenda. So when I'm saying the staff reports, that's item 13 rather than item 12. So just for correction. So now, Clerk Turner, could you please read the motion first, and then I will take questions. Yeah.
Be it resolved that the Director of Finance Treasurer be authorized to pay the accounts presented as Voucher 4-2020 and Voucher 5-2020 in the amounts of $720,046.92 and $3,162,775.57 respectively of the Municipality of West Grey.
Thank you. Is my mic unmuted? Thank you for check. So thank you. So I just want to ensure that our members of council have clarity in this. So we'll have the item, we'll have the presentation or comments from the director that has written the report. The clerk will read a motion. I'll look for a mover and a seconder, and then there will be questions or comments from the members of council. If you are moving the motion, please use the check mark, and then questions are for questions and comments are the raising of the hand. Okay, so I just want that confirmed. So I have, now that we have some check marks in place, I'm going to say, Councillor Townsend, are you moving this motion?
Councillor Townsend, yes, I am, please.
Deputy Mayor, are you seconding this motion?
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson seconds the motion.
Thank you very much. Now I am going to take questions. So if you could clear your board, if you have questions, raise your hand. Councillor Hergert, please.
Yes. On page 90 There is a bill or a to be paid Osprey equipment and repair in the amount of $58,601 and change. I was curious if I could have just an explanation of that expense. Page 90 in our agenda.
Thank you for quoting the page. Director Mighton, please.
I will refer to the Director of Infrastructure on the, I believe it's the grader repair.
Fair enough. Director Sherinsky, could you please respond to this inquiry?
Yes, through your worship. That $58,000 is for a grader transmission repair.
Okay, Councillor Hergert, does that satisfy your inquiry?
It does. It seems like it's quite expensive. I'm just curious, was that in our 2020 budget? Is this because we're foregoing something in our budget? Could you explain a little more? Is this a piece of equipment we planned on keeping?
Through your worship, okay, so first of all, it is a piece of equipment that we need for road maintenance, so it had to be repaired. It was an unbudgeted amount. The transmission failed on us, and to get it properly repaired, that's what it cost. It's I guess all I can say is that with the age of our equipment, sometimes these repairs come up, and it's a considerable component of the machine, so it had to be repaired.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for answering that question. I do have one further question on page 99.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, there's a company called SELOG, C-Log. It looks like this is some sort of company in between Veolia, our water provider, and our public works. And I guess I just don't feel that I've seen this expense before. I'm just looking to understand it.
Certainly through your worship. Basically, they are a company that that we have a service contract for, and it's essentially to respond to SCADA-related issues with respect to our water treatment facilities, and it's essentially where if we call the individual on an as-needed basis, we would be paying premiums for travel, et cetera, and by having this small service contract, it allows us to call him as needed. Of course, there's limitations, but it is, let's just say it's less expensive to go that route as opposed to calling him without that particular service contract.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're quite welcome. You're quite welcome. Councillor Townsend, please.
Yes, Councillor Townsend. This is through Director Mighton, through you, Madam Mayor. I'm just wondering, you did mention the insurance, and I did notice the large amount of it. And I just wondered, can you remind us of the % increase that happened for this year, if possible?
Yes, we can. One moment, please.
I think it was seven. I'll have to look that up. I don't have it at my fingertips.
So that's fair enough, Director Mighton, because I'm recalling something, but I would like it confirmed. So we will have that confirmed. Councillor Townsend.
The reason I ask that is because it's good for the public also to understand that there are certain things we can't control in increases, and insurance rates are one of them that has been escalating. And I do know that our insurance agent has been really trying to keep it down to the minimum, but the industry itself is experiencing a lot of disasters and impacts. And so in general, you're seeing that kind of an increase. But I just thought if it was available, it would be nice for the public to know. So I'm sure it'll be in the minutes as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment and inquiry. All right, members of council, I'm not seeing anyone else have a comment or a question with regard to the motion. All right, I have looked again. So on the motion, all those in favor, please signify with a check mark. All those opposed, please signify with the X mark. And I will be voting as well. All right, so as mayor, I am voting in favor of this motion. Councillor Townsend, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Townsend, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Hergert, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Herbert, yes.
Councillor Shea, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Shea, yes.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, state your name and how you are voting.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, yes.
Councillor Hergert, pardon me. Councillor Hamilton, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hamilton, yes.
Councillor Hutchinson, please state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hutchison, yes.
Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. Please clear the board. We are now moving on to the second staff report from Director of Finance and Treasurer. This one deals with penalties, interest, and due dates. Director Mighton, please.
So we've, in response to several issues, obviously with the pandemic, we've surveyed other municipalities in the county. We're putting forward a recommendation to waive certain penalties and interests on various tax, utility, and miscellaneous billings and dog tags, as you note in the report. So it's presented for your consideration.
Yes, please.
What's being proposed is to waive the penalty and interest charges on property taxes for April 1st, May 1st, and June 1st. Waiving the late fee on the 2020 first quarter utility billings. Those are due April 30th. Waiving the late fees on 2020 monthly utility billings for March, April, and May. Deferring the due date for dog tags to May 31st. And waiving interest charges on miscellaneous accounts receivable billings for April, May, and June.
Thank you, Director Mighton. I appreciate that. So I think at this point, I'm going to take questions or comments from members of council before a motion is put forward. Just had a direction or a comment from the clerk that this would be appropriate to do so. I am seeing on the navigation board, if I can call it that, or the dashboard of my computer, that we have 3 members of council that wish to provide comment or questions, starting with Councillor Hutchinson, please.
Yes, I'm pleased to see that we're making some adjustments. That was one of my concerns I had, that what were we doing, given that a lot of municipalities were allowing late payments or deferring payments and so on. So I'm pleased that we're able to do that. But obviously by waiving the late fee, then we're saying that they may defer paying their payment for a month or two, which is good. So yeah, I commend Director Mighton for coming up with these ideas and strategies to sort of help us get through that. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Councillor Hutchinson, and we really appreciate that comment. I do know the hard work that our Director Mighton has put into this, and just on her own with regard to this, but also in dialogue and working with the area directors of finance and treasurer within Grey County, and I think that's really important. All right, having said that, Councillor Hamilton, you have the mic, as it were.
Well, thank you, Mayor Robinson, and thank you, Director Mighton. You have my full support for all your recommendations. I do have a question about tax sale. Could we hit the pause button on tax sale at this time?
Good question. Director Mighton, please.
So there is legislation specifically around the property tax sale procedures. Initiating new tax sales is at a discretion. Once we start it, then there is different timelines that we need to meet in order to continue with it. So if there's ones that are already in the queue, that's different. But as far as if it's ones that would be started, that's a different process.
Thank you, Director Mighton. So I'm hearing it could be at our discretion to not initiate a new tax sale file, but for tax sales that are already in process, that would be a different conversation and different actions, different implications. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm looking to your professional advice. What are your thoughts around tax sale, and is there something we could do today about reducing that stress and impact for our citizens?
As far as new initiated ones, we will review those and see where our balances are at, but nothing needs to be done at this point.
And so regarding that, should that also be part of the recommendation then that until June, West Grey will not pursue new tax sales?
It's not necessary at this point. If you feel you want to put that in, but it would be advised not to leave tax sales as a separate issue.
To leave tax sales as a separate issue. Okay. I would like to address the new tax sales today, whether that's a separate motion. And I would be interested, perhaps at the next meeting, to know more about the impact of hitting, quote, the pause button on current tax sale process. I understand that sounds like we need more information about what that impact would be. Thank you, Director Mighton.
So here's the thought. Thank you very much, Councillor Hamilton. Is there a way that we could perhaps address this in the budget dialogue? Or, I'm thinking that this might be the best thing. It folds all together. It obviously will impact us as a municipality in that and for our citizens. So I'm wondering, Director Mighton, would you be prepared on the April 13th meeting to provide the information that the councillors requested, but also for a full discussion of our full council? Can you?
Yeah, sure, that'll be fine.
Councillor Hamilton, how's that?
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further, Councillor? Anything further, Councillor Hamilton?
No, thank you, Mayor Robinson.
Okay, you're welcome. Now I'm not seeing any other hands. Now I am. Councillor Townsend, how quickly those hands come up. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. Just for continuity, I'll address the for sale, but it also ties into the tax. I'm wondering if there's a hereditary type issue with a particular file, if you will, whether or not we would treat or could treat that differently. So for example, on sales, if it's been a problem that you've been working on and been working for years to try to resolve the issue and it isn't getting there, would you treat that differently? And the same for tax penalty interest. So for example, if someone has been chronically late, has shown no intent to resolve the issue, and this could be for vacant buildings or anything, would we still waive the penalty? And can we legally, by legislation, segregate that into a different bucket and not provide them with relief from interest, because it's not the inability to pay, it's the lack of desire to pay. And that's the difference. So I put that through you, Madam Mayor, to our Director Mighton.
Good questions, Councillor Townsend. Good questions. So I think what I'd like to do is have all those questions answered on the 13th for just a full report, full discussion.
I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Thank you as well for that. I appreciate it. No, let's have that discussion. Okay. So, members of council, is there anyone else that wishes to provide a comment or question with regard to the report before us on penalties, interest, and due dates? Now, I am seeing some check marks, which to me means there's a motion at hand. So I am going to have Clerk Turner read a motion, and then I'll look to the, I'm going to look to Councillor Hergert and Councillor Shea in that order to move in second and then confirm that this is the motion that they want before us procedurally. That's the way the clerk would like this. Clerk Turner, please.
Resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby approves the following financial relief measures due to the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Waive penalty interest charges on property taxes for April, May, and June. Waive the late fee on the 2020 first quarter utility billings. Waive the late fees on 2020 monthly utility billings for March, April, and May. Defer the due date for dog tags to May 31st, 2020. And just a note to council that bylaw 25 of 20 will formalize that. And lastly, waive interest charges on miscellaneous accounts receivable billings for April, May, and June.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hergert, are you moving this motion?
Councillor Hergert, yes, I am moving this motion.
Councillor Shea, are you seconding this motion?
Yes, I am seconding the motion. Could the first item where it says April, May, and June, and the last item where it says April, May, and June say 2020?
Yes, absolutely. We could put that in. And I also have that confirmed with our Director of Finance and Treasurer, just for clarity on that. And yep, Clerk Turner is fine with that. Now, I'm going to now check with Councillor Hergert. Are you okay with that change in the motion as the mover?
I am. Yes, Councillor Hergert, I am. I don't think that's necessary, but yeah.
Thank you. And obviously, Councillor Shea, who you are seconding it, want that change, but just confirm, please.
Councillor Shea, yes.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, on the motion, are there any questions or comments or concerns? If you do, you raise your hand, don't use a check mark. So any check marks can come off right now. And I'm looking at Councillor Townsend, who has his hand raised for a question or comment. Please go ahead, Councillor Townsend.
The question, sorry, just Councillor Townsend, and the question is there anything we need to do to the motion to consider the additional information that is coming on Monday, particularly as it relates to the penalty interest? Because I asked whether or not that could be not unilateral, but actually not provide relief to people that are not paying taxes and haven't for a significant period of time.
Okay, good question. Director Mighton, please.
Yeah, when we discussed that as part of our group of treasurers, and we did feel that treating ratepayers all the same in this situation is better than trying to isolate different treatment for different people. And that would avoid potentially getting into the optics of bonusing any one individual, because we're treating it all the same. Either we're waiving penalty or we're not.
Councillor Townsend, anything further?
Yes, just to clarify, we're talking about we would not waive any past, only any additional for those 3 months then?
Correct. It's just penalty that would have updated on April 1st is not done. Penalty updated on May 1st would not be done of 2020, etc.
Okay, then I'm fine with leaving the motion as it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that clarity, Councillor. Any other questions, comments? I'm looking at my dashboard. Seeing none. On the motion, all those in favor, please signify by the check mark, which is a yes, and an X, which is a no. Please do that now. So I will start as mayor. I am voting in favor of this motion. Councillor Townsend, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Townsend, in favor.
Councillor Hergert, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hergert, yes.
Councillor Shea, your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Shea, yes.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, state your name and how you are voting.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, yes.
Councillor Hamilton, please state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hamilton, yes.
Councillor Hutchinson, please state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hutchison, yes, in favor.
So that motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And Director Mighton, again, thank you for all your hard work on this. It certainly is a method by which we can represent our citizens on this. So, and again, thank you, members of council. So the third report from our Director of Finance and Treasurer is on the Municipal Modernization Funding Agreement. So I am going to toss it to Director Mighton for comments, and then following that, we'll just move forward on a motion and questions.
Yes, so the, as council knows, we had applied for funding for a service delivery review under the modernization funding. So that has been approved. So the agreement is being presented in the bylaw for later in the meeting. There's no action required at this point, but just that the bylaw is being presented for approval.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. I'm just looking at my notes and the report. Yes, because it's a bylaw, we'll be dealing with it at the bylaw section. So we're not looking for a mover and seconder on this, but what I am looking for now is if there are any questions on this report. And I do see a couple raised hands, beginning with Councillor Hutchinson, please.
Yes, Councillor Hutchison. Just a question to our Director of Finance, and something to think about when we get to the bylaw is, are the timelines going to need adjusting? Like when I look at the timelines, they seem fairly strict. And given the situation we're in, are some of those have to be adjusted? Just want her to think about that, and maybe we can comment later, if not now.
Well, I think that's a really great detailed question, and I know our director is able to respond to it now. Director Mighton, please.
Yeah, so we are not at liberty to change those due dates. That will be something that perhaps the provincial government will adjust later on when this draft or when the agreement did get circulated. It was before the pandemic and the current situation, but we are not at liberty to adjust those dates. That will be something the province will have to and likely will adjust later on.
You still have the floor, Councillor Hutchinson.
Right, so given that we're just passing this, we won't have sent out an RFP for someone to do this service yet, correct?
That is correct. I can say that, but Director Mighton, correct? Yep. Anything further, Councillor Hutchinson?
Right. So whether they can even do this job, given that they have to go out into the community, if that's the case, or can they do it remotely?
Director Mighton, I think you're in a better position to respond, please.
Yeah, until we put out the RFP, we won't know how they plan to implement and initiate their review. So we'll have to cross that bridge once we get the RFP out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Townsend, please, we will unmute you.
Yeah, first, sorry, Councillor Townsend. First, I'll apologize for hitting the check mark first. I really did mean to hit the hand. My questions were very similar to Councillor Hutchinson with one addition. And what that was is, are we still moving forward at this point? So it's kind of like a status of sort of where we're heading now. Or do we have to wait, in essence, to put even the RFP out? And if we do that, then what is likely to be the government's reaction if we put it on hold? Because we're going to run into some delays. I can't see it as an essential activity, but certainly one that would help us financially.
So I see that as a very good question, and one that our Chief Administrative Officer, Laura Johnson, should be ably available to respond to that, and her hand is up. CAO Johnson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Councillor Townsend. That's a good question. I would like to let Council know that part of the submission for the grant application was to attach a draft RFP. So the request for proposals is 99% completed. I need to just do one final review, probably to add a paragraph on proposals on how they could conduct some of this work in light of the current reality that we're all working under. Electronics and video have become our best friends, so I don't see that there's a reason why they couldn't at least begin some of the work. And as the director pointed out, the original deadline was June. The province has already given an extension to September. So I'm optimistic that this work should continue, and there would probably be creative ways that these consultants would propose to us. Any proposals that do come back will have to go through a staff review anyway, and the council would see those before the work begins.
Thank you, CAO Johnston. Councillor Townsend, you still have the mic. Anything further?
Yes, just one further comment. Having gone through such things as service reviews in the past, in my past life, most of these folks should be able to do it remotely. It will involve some staff time, which might be challenging depending on who the focus is on, or if it's right across the board, and the workload. So that would be my one concern. But realistically, a good company should be able to do it remote and not necessarily have to meet. They may actually ask for certain past documents, and that may be the only challenge of how much you want to pass over, depending where it's coming from and the risk at the time. Other than that, I'm fine with your response. Thank you, CAO Johnson. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm not looking for a mover and seconder here or a motion. It's just receive for information here, but we do have a bylaw, so that's the time I would be looking for a mover and seconder for consideration of that. All right, so that takes us off all of the reports from Director of Finance and Treasurer. We have one final report, and this report is from Clerk Turner regarding Joint Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. Clerk Turner, please.
Yes, so as noted in my report, just want to formalize the appointments of Rob Martin, Police Chief, and Laura Johnston, CEO Deputy Clerk, as the Municipality of West Grey representatives on the Advisory Committee for the Joint Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan Committee, which is for Bruce and Grey County. So I will read the motion. Be resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby appoints Rob Martin, Police Chief, and Laura Johnston, CEO Deputy Clerk, as the Municipality of West Grey's representatives on the Advisory Committee for the Joint Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan Committee, as led by the counties of Bruce and Grey.
Thank you, Clerk Turner, for reading the motion. Is there a mover and a seconder for this motion, please? I see Councillor Townsend and Deputy Mayor Hutchinson in that particular order. Councillor Townsend, are you moving the motion?
Yes, Councillor Townsend, I will move the motion, please.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, are you seconding the motion?
Yes, I, Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, second the motion.
Are there any comments or questions from members of council? If so, please raise your hand. Councillor Hergert, please.
Yes, I read the document, the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. It looked like we received one voting member and one alternate. Is that the case?
Clerk Turner, would you please respond to the inquiry? All right, I'm going to ask Madam CAO to respond rather than the clerk on this one.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Hergert, and through you, Madam Mayor. That is my understanding. The police chief is a supporting role for the CAO. That's the model that many of the municipalities have taken.
Anything further, Councillor Hergert?
So then just to clarify that our Laura Johnson would be our primary voter person, and that Rob Martin, police chief, would be a second if needed, or an alternate, let's say.
Madam CAO, could you just reiterate for clarity for Member Hergert, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Councillor Hergert and all of council, that is my understanding, correct.
Thank you.
Anything further, Councillor Hergert?
No.
Members of council, are there any other questions or comments with regard to this motion? Seeing none? So, I am asking members of council to vote on this motion. If you are in favor, please use the check mark. If you are not in favor of it, please use the X mark. All right, as Mayor Christine Robinson, I am voting in favor of this motion. Councillor Hutchinson, state your name and how you vote, please.
Councillor Hutchison, yes, in favor.
Councillor Hamilton, please state your name and how you will be voting.
Councillor Hamilton, yes.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, please state your name and how you are voting.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, yes.
Councillor Shea, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Shea, yes.
Councillor Hergert, please state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hergert, yes.
Councillor Townsend, please state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Townsend, yes.
Thank you all. That motion carries unanimously. So we are now completed item 13, staff reports, and we are moving on to item 14, bylaws. So our first bylaw, proposed bylaw, is proposed bylaw number 19-2020. Clerk Turner, please.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 19-2020, being a bylaw to authorize an agreement for the development and implementation of a joint community safety and wellbeing plan for the Municipality of West Grey, as led by the counties of Bruce and Grey, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Thank you, Clerk Turner. Is there a mover and a seconder for this motion? And if so, indicate with the check mark. Councillor Hergert and Councillor Shea. So Councillor Hergert, are you moving this motion?
Councillor Hergert, yes, I am moving this motion.
Councillor Shea, are you seconding this motion?
Councillor Shea, I second the motion.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments with regard to this motion? Seeing none. On the motion, all those in favor, please signify with a check mark. All those opposed, signify with an X mark. As mayor, I am voting in favor of this motion. Councillor Townsend, please state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Townsend, in favor.
Councillor Hergert, please state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hergert, yes.
Councillor Shea, please state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Shea, yes.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, please state your name and how you are voting.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, yes.
Councillor Hamilton, please state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hamilton, yes.
Hutchinson, please state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hutchison, yes.
Okay, this vote carried unanimously. Thank you. We are moving on now to proposed bylaw 20-2020. Clerk Turner, please.
Be it resolved that bylaw 20-2020, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and CEO deputy clerk to sign an Ontario Transfer Payment Agreement (brackets Municipal Modernization Program) between the Municipality of West Grey (brackets being the recipients) and Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Ontario, as represented by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing (brackets the province), be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Thank you, Clerk Turner. Is there a mover and a seconder for this motion? Councillor Hamilton, are you moving this motion?
Councillor Hamilton, yes, I move this.
Councillor Townsend, are you seconding this motion?
Councillor Townsend, yes, I'm seconding the motion.
Are there any questions or comments from members of council? If so, raise your hand. Seeing none? I'm seeing one now. Councillor Townsend, please.
Yes, Councillor Townsend, on page 18 of the agreement, I noticed the contacts hadn't been yet inserted. But other than that, it seemed fine.
So staff, could you please comment on that? I'll start with Director Mighton, and if not, then I'll go to CAO Johnston, please. Clerk, we're just checking that, Councillor Townsend.
Sorry, Councillor Townsend, was it the contact information? Was that what you had indicated?
Yes, that's what I meant. Yep.
Yeah, so yeah, we on the version that we've got for signing, we have added that in for the CAO and myself as the contacts there.
Excellent, thank you. I just didn't want it to be missed.
No, thank you very much. All questions need to be addressed for clarity purposes. So are there any other questions? If so, please raise your hand. And Councillor Townsend, yeah, your hand is now down. All right, thank you. So on the motion for proposed bylaw 2020, please indicate a check mark for in favor and an X mark for not in favor. Okay, as Mayor, I am voting in favor. As Mayor Christine Robinson, I'm voting in favor of this motion. Councillor Hutchinson, please state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hutchison, in favor.
Councillor Hamilton, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hamilton, yes.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, state your name and how you are voting.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, yes.
Councillor Shea, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Shea, yes.
Councillor Hergert, please state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hergert, yes.
Councillor Townsend, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Townsend, yes.
Thank you, members of council. That motion has carried unanimously. Moving on to proposed bylaw 21-2020. Clerk Turner, please.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 20-2020, being a deeming bylaw for lands described as Lot 49, Plan 1097, subject to right in R345769, subject to an easement and gross as in GY 167224, being PIN 37215-0117, brackets LT, which means land titles, Geographic Township of Bentic, in the Municipality of West Grey in the County of Grey, brackets 1896830, Ontario Inc., B01 2020, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. So just to clarify this resolution, it comes from a severance or lot addition within a plan of subdivision. And because it is a registered lot in the plan of subdivision, in order to facilitate the lot addition, there has to be a deeming bylaw passed.
Thank you. Thank you, Clerk Turner. Yes, thank you, Clerk Turner. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for this motion. So just for clarification, could you, Clerk Turner, just clarify the bylaw number, please? And
Sorry, I may have, the bylaw is number 21-2020.
very much for that. So I'm looking for a mover and a seconder, and I see Councillor Hutchinson. Are you moving the motion?
Yes, Councillor Hutchison moves the motion.
Councillor Hamilton, are you seconding this motion?
Councillor Hamilton, yes, I will second.
Thank you both. Questions or comments? If you could take your check mark off, I appreciate it. Questions, comments by raising your hand, members of council? Seeing none. On the motion before us, please indicate by a check mark yes or an X no. As Mayor Christine Robinson, I am voting in favor of this motion. Councillor Townsend, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Townsend, yes.
Councillor Hergert, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hergert, yes.
Councillor Shea, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Shea, yes.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, state your name and how you are voting.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, yes.
Councillor Hamilton, state your name and how you are voting, please.
Councillor Hamilton, yes.
Councillor Hutchinson, state your name and how you are voting, please.
Councillor Hutchison, yes.
This motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on, we have a fair number of bylaws on this agenda, but moving on to proposed bylaw 22-2020. Clerk Turner, please.
So before introducing any resolutions, I do have some comments to make on both bylaw 22 and 23-2020. And the recommendations will be to defer any decisions on these bylaws. The West Grey Manager of Planning and myself received an email on March 31st from Randy Schertzer, the Director of Planning for Grey County. Subsequently, we also held a Zoom meeting last Friday with myself, the Director of the West Grey Manager Planning, and Mr. Schertzer, just to see if there's any updates on what the original email from March 31st alluded to, and unfortunately there isn't. So the province has passed Ontario Regulation 7320, and this relates to the pandemic. Because if there's any planning applications that may be referred to an appeal process being through the local planning appeal tribunal, the recommendation is at this time, and the direction from the province is to put on hold any decisions that will involve an appeal period, and that would include bylaws 22 and 23 of 2020. So Mr. Schertzer, the Director Schertzer, had hoped to have some follow-up from the province, and indeed the Municipal Affairs Office has indicated that they will hopefully provide some further updates on this situation, but there is nothing new. So at this time, the consensus is that these bylaws be deferred until we have clarity from the province that we can indeed pass zoning bylaw amendments and then proceed with the appeal period. There is one actual application that was dealt with on March 10th by the West Grey Committee of Adjustment relating to a severance. And because it was passed on March 10th, just prior to the March 16th, the appeal period, which was to have lapsed April 1st, is in itself extended indefinitely. So that one is kind of in a hiatus. There is also going to be some follow-up that may quite well impact the upcoming April 21st Committee of Adjustment and Committee of the Whole Planning meetings, because it is the interpretation through and then confirmation through Municipal Affairs that the electronic meeting emergency provisions instituted by the province does not apply to public meetings under the Planning Act. So that will certainly have implications for the April 21st meetings, which may have to be postponed in turn, but I will advise council of that. So I do have motions. I'll introduce one motion and then certainly there may be questions. I don't know if you want to take, Councilor Hergert does have her hand.
So I want to I'll go for a mover and seconder. And if you want to move or second, please indicate by a check mark once the clerk reads the motion, and then I will entertain questions that are the hand raised. Clerk Turner, introduce the motion, please.
So that bylaw number 22-2020, being a bylaw to rezone Part Lot 3 to Division 3, Concession 1 EGR, Geographic Township of Glenelg, being Gagnon, Mallet Gagnon, ZA-01-20-B02/2020, be deferred until planning staff receives sufficient clarification from the province respecting the ability to approve planning applications as a result of the passing of OREG 7320 due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you, Clerk Turner, and certainly the clarification from the province is important. So I'm looking for a mover and seconder. Councillor Townsend, are you moving the motion?
Councillor Townsend, yes, I am moving the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Hutchinson, are you seconding the motion?
Councillor Hutchison seconds the motion.
Thank you very much. If you could clear the board, and I'm now looking for any questions by raising your hand. I am not seeing any. I am now seeing one. Councillor Hergert, please.
So I guess I'm very curious about if we would even have a committee of adjustments meeting in the future, but I guess we'll have to wait on that and see how we proceed. Like any of these next items, so 23 and 22, both being deferred makes sense. However, one of these will be affecting a business. And so I'm looking at that thinking, could this person be doing business right now? Maybe they could, and maybe we should allow them to do business. Anyhow, I guess we'll have to wait for the province's update on Planning Act matters. But if there's no LPAT review of anything, then we wouldn't be proceeding with any further committee of adjustments.
Right. Well, thank you very much for your question, Councillor Hergert. We do need to wait for clarification from the province with regard to this. These are bylaws that will need to be considered at the appropriate time. So not operating the business at this time until council has a thorough vote on this motion at the most appropriate time. So I think that's important. But thank you for bringing that question forward just for discussion purposes. I do see there's another hand raised. Councillor Hutchinson, please.
Yeah, I think I understand where Councillor Hergert's come from, but I think if you look at it, this business is probably not classified as essential anyways, and therefore probably not doing too much business at this point.
And that's another good point, Councillor Hutchinson. Okay, so we do have a motion before us. It's been moved by Councillor Townsend, seconded by Councillor Hutchinson. We've had questions on it or comments. So on the motion, all those in favor signify by the check mark, and those in opposition, please signify by the X mark. All right, so I will start. As Mayor Christine Robinson, I am voting in favor of this motion. Councillor Hutchinson, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hutchison, yes.
Councillor Hamilton, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hamilton, yes.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, state your name and how you are voting.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, yes.
Councillor Shea, state your name, please, and how you are voting.
Councillor Shea, yes.
Councillor Hergert, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hergert, yes.
Councillor Townsend, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Townsend, yes.
That motion carried unanimously. So we are moving on to proposed bylaw 23-2020. Clerk Turner, please.
2020, being a bylaw to rezone part lots 9 and 10, concession 18, geographic township of Normanby, brackets David-ZA-02-20, be deferred until planning staff receives sufficient clarification from the province respecting the ability to approve planning applications as a result of the passing of OREG 7320 due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Council, is there a mover and a seconder for this motion? Councillor Hergert, are you moving this motion?
Councillor Hergert, yes.
Councillor Shea, are you seconding this motion?
Councillor Shea, I second the motion.
Members of council, are there any questions or comments with regard to this motion? I am not seeing any. So on the motion, all those in favor signify by a check mark. All those opposed signify by an X mark. As Mayor Christine Robinson, I am voting in favor of the motion. Councillor Townsend, please state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Townsend, yes.
Councillor Hergert, please state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hergert, yes.
Councillor Shea, please state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Shea, yes.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, state your name and how you are voting.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, yes.
Councillor Hamilton, please state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hamilton, yes.
Councillor Hutchinson, please state your name and how you are voting.
Sorry, Councillor Hutchison, yes.
The motion does carry unanimously. Thank you. We are moving on to proposed bylaw 24-2020. Clerk Turner, please.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 24-2020, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and CEO to enter into a license of occupation agreement between the Municipality of West Grey and ATEL Networks, Inc., be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
I am looking for a mover and a seconder for this motion. Councillor Townsend, are you moving this motion?
Councillor Townsend, yes, I am.
Councillor Hutchinson, are you seconding this motion?
Councillor Hutchison seconds the motion.
Thank you. Members of council, are there any questions or comments with regard to this motion? Councillor Townsend, please.
Councillor Townsend, as a customer of ATEL, I know that they are struggling a bit with their service level, and that's not because I'm experiencing it, it's because they're sending a note out saying in certain areas it's limited. So they obviously could improve that service with such opportunities like is being presented here. So that's why I was in favor of it.
Thank you. Further questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, on the motion, please signify with a check mark for yes and an X mark for no. Okay. As Mayor Christine Robinson, I am voting in favor of this motion. Councillor Hutchinson, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hutchison, in favor.
Councillor Hamilton, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hamilton, yes.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, state your name and how you are voting.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, yes.
Councillor Shea, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Shea, yes.
Councillor Hergert, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hergert, yes.
Councillor Townsend, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Townsend, yes.
The motion carries unanimously. Moving on to bylaw 25, proposed bylaw 25, 2020. Clerk Turner, please.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 25-2020, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 73-2011, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 87 of 2009, being a bylaw for the licensing of dogs and for the regulating of and for regulating the running at large of dogs and regulating kennels within the Municipality of West Grey, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Thank you, Clerk Turner. Is there a mover and a seconder for this motion? Signify by a check mark. Councillor Hutchinson, are you moving this motion?
Yes, I would move the motion.
Councillor Shea, are you seconding this motion?
Councillor Shea, I second the motion.
Thank you. Members of council, any questions or concerns with regard to this motion? Councillor Hutchinson, please.
Yes, looking at the older bylaws, so basically this is just a date change, is it not?
Yes, Councillor, that is correct. Clerk Turner, can you just confirm that for me?
Yes, it is only the date that the dog tags are due for this year that is being changed.
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor signify by the check mark and an X for not in favor. Okay, as Mayor Christine Robinson, I am voting in favor of this motion. Councillor Townsend, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Townsend, in favor.
Councillor Hergert, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hergert, yes.
Councillor Shea, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Shea, yes.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, state your name and how you are voting.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, yes.
Councillor Hamilton, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hamilton, yes.
Councillor Hutchinson, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hutchison, yes.
Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. We are now on proposed bylaw 26-2020. Clerk Turner, please.
There is a bylaw number 26-2020, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the April 7th, 2020 council meeting, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Thank you. Councillor Hergert, are you moving this motion?
Councillor Hergert, yes, I am.
Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Hamilton, are you seconding this motion?
Councillor Hamilton, I second the motion.
Thank you. Members of council, are there any questions or comments with regard to this motion? Seeing none. On the motion, all those in favor signify by the check mark yes, and if you're opposed with the X, no. Okay, as Mayor Christine Robinson, I am voting in favor of this motion. Councillor Hutchinson, state your name and how you are voting on this motion.
Councillor Hutchison, yes.
Councillor Hamilton, state your name and how you are voting on this motion.
Councillor Hamilton, yes.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, state your name and how you are voting on this motion.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, yes.
Councillor Shea, state your name and how you are voting on this motion.
Councillor Shea, yes.
Councillor Hergert, state your name and how you are voting on this motion.
Councillor Hergert, yes.
Councillor Townsend, state your name and how you are voting on this motion.
Councillor Townsend, yes.
The motion carries unanimously. Councillor Hergert, and Councillor Hamilton was seconder. Thank you, Clerk Turner. We are now on the final proposed bylaw for this agenda, which is proposed bylaw 29-2020. Clerk Turner.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 29-2020, being a bylaw to adopt the estimates of revenue and expenditures for the year 2020, be deferred to accommodate further 2020 budget deliberations at future council and/or committee of the whole meetings, and I put meetings in brackets, whether there's one being the April 13th or more. I left that open to possibility.
I'm looking for a mover and a seconder. I see Councillor Townsend. Are you moving this motion?
Councillor Townsend, yes, I'm moving the motion.
Councillor Hamilton, are you seconding this motion?
Councillor Hamilton, I second the motion.
Thank you. Questions, comments by raising your hand. Councillor Townsend, please.
Yes, this is Councillor Townsend. I had a question regarding a category that wasn't included in this motion for future reference, and that was roads. And the reason I raised that is not just for the construction of roads, but also the winter maintenance. I thought we actually had a reserve such that if we were under on 1 year and over on the next, and et cetera, we could go back and forth. And I wasn't sure if that I recalled that, and it was actually in the general reserve, or if there was a road/winter maintenance, and maybe roads itself also needs to be done. So I wonder if through you, Madam Mayor, that Director Wightman could respond to that.
So what I would say first, Councillor Townsend, thank you very much for raising the question. It's all inclusive, so I would say that it will be part of the discussion. Director Wightman, anything further to that?
Yeah, the items that are on there are either boards, the water, sewer, recreation, cemetery board. It's not meant for independent departments. There was a separate motion from previous council regarding the transfer to, if there was a surplus at year end in the public works, that we transferred a portion to winter control and a portion to equipment, but that was a one-off motion when it looked like we were in a surplus position in the department.
But we could have the overall discussion on the 13th overall. Okay, Councillor Townsend, any further clarity you wish?
Well, thank you very much for the clarification.
Okay, you're quite welcome. Members of council, are there any other questions or comments with regard to this motion? Okay, seeing none. On the motion, please indicate a yes by the check mark, no, that you're not in favor of the motion. Okay, I will begin. As Mayor Christine Robinson, I'm voting in favor of this motion. Councillor Townsend, state your name and how you're voting for this motion.
Councillor Townsend, yes.
Councillor Hergert, state your name and how you are voting on this motion.
Councillor Hergert, yes.
Councillor Shea, state your name and how you are voting on this motion.
Councillor, yes.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, state your name and how you are voting on this motion.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, yes.
Councillor Hamilton, please state your name and how you are voting on this motion.
Councillor Hamilton, yes.
Councillor Hutchinson, please state your name and how you are voting on this motion.
Councillor Hutchison, yes.
The motion does carry unanimously. Thank you. We have successfully achieved dealing with all of the bylaws under this section. And we are moving on to item 15, new business. Members of council, are there any new business? Seeing none, we are now moving on to item 16, which is addendums. Clerk Turner, are there any addendums?
There are none.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Item 17, notice of motion or direct motion. Are there any direct motions or notices of motion? Seeing none, We are moving on to item 18, closed section, not closed section, closed session, incomplete items only, that is an NA. Item 19, matters arising from closed session, that is another NA. We are now on question period. Director Mighton will assist and actually manage this section for us. Director Mighton, are there any citizens that have indicated that they have a question that is germane to this agenda?
No, I do not see any at this point, but I will go through and remind everyone how they can participate. Members of the public who wish to participate during the question period may participate in one of three ways. If you have logged into the meeting with your computer, you can submit a question using the chat function located at the bottom of your screen. Type your name and your question into the chat and send the message to Carrie. Questions will be placed in sequence and I will read them aloud. If you have logged into the meeting with your computer and would like to speak to council, please click the raise your hand button located in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen in the participant section. When it is your turn, I will indicate that you have been unmuted and you state your name and ask your question. If you have joined the meeting on telephone and would like to speak to council, press *9 to raise your hand. When it is your turn, we will indicate that you've been unmuted and you may state your name and ask your question. I do not.
Is there anybody that has a question? I will look to Director Mighton to see if there's anyone at this point.
No, I do not have anyone.
Director, I'm going to ask for a second time. Has anybody indicated that they have a question?
I do have one. It's from Jenny Jenny Parsons. Steve Morrell is here. Just wondering if it would be prudent for council to receive financials regarding 2020 budget by end of day Friday.
We are going to have a agenda prepared for our meeting on Monday, April 13th. So that agenda would normally go out on the Thursday, and because Friday is Good Friday, but that's our normal routine. So the agenda would be posted on our website and available. So that agenda will be available for you to take a look at. So thank you for the question, Steve and Jenny. I do see that there is another question. I wonder if you could assist me with that, Director Mighton.
Yep, Janice McKechnie, your line is unmuted.
Hello, Janice. Please state your question.
Thank you. You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. A question about budgets, and it's probably already been answered, but how many times, because of COVID-19, and this is unprecedented, which is a word we're using a lot, how many times can the budget be opened or reassessed during the year? Because this is really a moving target, right, for all of us?
Well, the way I'd answer that, I'll start off, but Director Mighton, you can, well, why don't you go first and then I'll respond as well. I think that's the easiest way. Director Mighton, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, there is no legislative requirement as far as how many meetings council may take to pass a budget. If they do pass a budget, they can still go back and amend it. Where it gets tricky is if we have already issued final tax bills and then they were wanting to amend it, then that would have implications as far as having to reissue a tax bill. Not that it couldn't be done, but that would be what we'd be facing. But otherwise, there's no timeline for council to pass their budget.
Thank you.
And, oh, you're quite welcome. And I wanted Director Mighton to go first because just with regard to the legislative component and also operational, but certainly I can say on behalf of council, we will always take a fine lens to the budget and see how that is representing our citizens. And by the way, thank you for being here, Dennis, and participating. I want to say that. Your hand is still up, so I'm just checking. Was there anything further? Okay, your hand is down. Appreciate the comment. Oh, you're quite welcome. Director Mighton, is there anyone else in the queue for questions at this time? No? All right, so calling for the third time. Is there any member of our community that is listening online that wishes a question? All right. Seeing none, thank you very much for those that did participate. We quite like this section. So now we are moving on to item 21, which is Municipal Act notices. There are none for this particular agenda. So I am now moving on to item 22, adjournment. I see that there is a mover, which, okay, but before I move that, I do see there's a mover and seconder. But before I call the members of council name, I would like Clerk Turner to read the motion.
Resolved that we do now adjourn at 1:25 p.m. to meet again on April 7th, 2020, 7 p.m. or at the call of the mayor.
Thank you, Clerk Turner. Deputy Mayor, are you moving this motion? Appreciate you.
Deputy Mayor, are you moving this motion?
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, yes, moves the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Hutchinson, are you moving this motion? Sorry, no. Are you seconding this motion, Councillor Hutchinson?
Councillor Hutchinson seconds the motion.
Thank you. Members of council, any questions on this motion? Thank you. So please vote by a yes check mark or a no X mark. All right, as Mayor Christine Robinson, I am in favor of this motion. Councillor Hutchinson, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hutchinson, yes.
Councillor Hamilton, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hamilton, yes.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, state your name and how you are voting.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, yes.
Councillor Shea, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Shea, yes.
Councillor Hergert, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Hergert, yes.
Councillor Townsend, state your name and how you are voting.
Councillor Townsend, yes.
The motion is carried unanimously. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, one and all.